Okay, and I can confirm we are now live, so I would like to call the meeting to order at exactly 9 a.m.
Exactly 9 a.m.
And I can
Yay.
confirm
And I can confirm we do have quorum, although Councillor Morrison is absent today. He's out west enjoying himself, so that's good. And with that, I would ask Councillor Stone if you could read the land acknowledgement, please.
I'd be happy to. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the terms of the Robertson-Huron Treaty number 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunities, honor sacred spaces, and take actions towards real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations.
Thank you for that.
So I have a motion moved by Councillor Schumacher and seconded by Deputy Mayor Armour. It is recommended that the General Committee meeting agenda dated Wednesday, March 1st, 2023 be adopted as printed and circulated. All those in favor? And that carries.
Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, and before I invite our first presenter today, we have two new staff with us today, and I would like to introduce them. Trevor Donald is over in the gallery. Say hi to everybody, Trevor. And Trevor is our new person who is filling the position to support our three new subcommittees of council, and started last week. How has it been? I'm putting you on the spot. Being careful. So welcome. And the other one is Dan Taylor, who is new to our IT department over there, just waved. And what is the correct, I'm putting the CAO on the spot because she has the correct title. Systems and Mobile Administrator. See, you can see why I might have forgotten that. Welcome, Dan. Okay, and with that, I would like to introduce Salim Hall to join us. And Salim is here to talk about the YMCA programming. Welcome, Salim.
Thank you. Nice to see some microphone.
Yep.
Is it on?
Yep.
Am I good?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Perfect.
So thank you for having me, sincerely. On behalf of the YMCA of Simcoe Muskoka and Huntsville, first of all, we wanted to congratulate Your Worship, Mayor Alcott, and esteemed council members on your election. We're excited to see the new council, and really, we're looking forward to the next 4 years and wish you all the success over not just the next 4 years, 4 years and beyond. So I wanted to, again, extend greetings and salutations from your local YMCA here in Huntsville and Huntsville of Simcoe Muskoka. The reason why I'm here today is to introduce or reintroduce the YMCA to the council members, to council, and to talk a little bit about our shared impact on the place we call home, which is Huntsville. Now, I can rhyme off a lot of different programs ad nauseum and talk to you about success rates, but really what I want to do is highlight how what we're offering at the local YMCA, and in fact, most non-for-profits and service clubs have a direct correlation to your strategic planning, your planning process, and the support you're offering in our shared communities. And so the first thing I want to draw attention to is our impact to the economic development. I believe that's the first strategic plan that you have, and over the last few years, the YMCA, you may not know, has injected tens of thousands of dollars back into our local economy. We do this by supporting local employers, by wage subsidies to help bring on new staff and help that onboarding cost, which many business owners around the table know that's expensive to bring on new employees. We also support new employees with transportation dollars, work clothes, work boots, everything not just to get a job, but to be successful in that job. Again, those around the table that are part of the local economy know it's not just about getting somebody, it's about keeping somebody, and how do you retain that staff? And the other piece that we do is create innovative programs. So we had a DZ program, again, understanding the local labor market needs, we offered free DZ training to those in our community that were interested in upgrading their skills, responding to, again, that local labor market piece. So that's just really one highlight of what we do in impacting the strategic plan and the initiatives here around council table from the YMCA. The other piece that we do, and we do this proudly, is talk to wellness, community wellness. Now, we have a lot of, well, not a lot, but we have a number of new Canadians coming up and calling Huntsville home. They want to live, work, and play here, to steal a line from the ECDEV department. But oddly enough, there's no ESL courses. There's no funding for ESL courses until the YMCA raised some funds and created an ESL course. And it's about community wellness. It's about how do you integrate into community, not just working there, but feeling safe in there and feeling comfortable. Language is the best way about that. And so the YMCA over the last few months has been offering an ESL course with huge success to a lot of the new Canadians who want to call Huntsville home and are working here. But wellness and community wellness is not just about employment. It's about how do you successfully integrate into community. So we're quite proud of the work we've done in launching an ESL course here in our own community. And again, it's been huge. It's been a great success. So we've talked a little bit about economic development, our impact towards that, our impact towards community wellness. The last piece I want to bring your attention to is our responsiveness. And this, I think, ties in well to what council does around the table in responding to our shifting and changing community needs. We've launched 3 signature programs. The first one is to help single parents enter into the labor market, and not just getting a job, but understanding what is your brand, what is your value as a single parent, how can you approach the labor market, and what are the supports necessary to be able to be successful in that, and how do we carve those opportunities out. So that's the first program that we've launched, and being responsive to our community, understanding coming out of COVID, there's a lot of single parents out there that really want to participate in our economy, but are having a tough time figuring out what does that look and feel like. The second program that we launched in partnership with Community Living is helping some of our most vulnerable youth. And to take a page from the community services, we recognize that play is important. It connects people, it makes them feel, it builds up their skill sets, it provides non-traditional learning methods. So we created a signature series, Learning Through Play, and getting young people out there. We took them bowling, we took them axe throwing, we went on hikes, but all of those, we talked about what are the skills that you use and what do you lean on to be successful in that. I'm happy to say about 70 to 80% of those that participate in a youth program have found either employment or volunteering in their community. So that's another signature series that we've launched. And the last one is mature workers. So how do we help our mature workers recognize both the cost of living, and we're seeing a lot more people access our service that thought retirement or semi-retirement is in the works, but realizing they need some more funds, but are, I don't want to say handcuffed by the perception that there is a barrier to mature workers. Now, me being a little bit older, I think it's not, I don't think it's that true. But I think providing this type of supports and understanding the value and the skill sets and the transferable skills that mature workers bring to our economy is huge. I'm actually running to that program right after this because we've invited Simcoe Muskoka Workforce Development Group to come talk to them about supports and services. And so that also talks about partnerships. All of those programs are underpinned by supports, by mental health supports and other wraparound services. So those are just 3 highlights of your local YMCA, and not just the YMCA. There are other service clubs, non-for-profits, community agencies. I can go on and on. And the reason why I requested an audience on behalf of the YMCA is as you go through your strategic planning, as you go through your budgetary process, as you go through your community consultations and your community groups, you might be wondering, well, where do I get the resource to achieve all the asks that are coming from our community? Well, I'm here to say you're not in it alone. Again, the YMCA, along with other service agencies, are here by your side to ensure that the growth and the health of this community that we call home is vibrant. And so that's the main reason why I wanted to come here, is to introduce or reintroduce the services and supports and the successes that the YMCA does in the background to support your strategic planning and the initiatives that come from council. And the last piece I want to bring your attention to are 2 signature series that were coming up, events. The first on May 3rd, is our Move to Give. Mayor Alcott participated in it last year. We have a bike. We raise funds. We invite first responders out there. It's all in efforts to raise awareness about community health through active living, but it's also to raise funds for the YMCA and supporting programs like our ESL programs and sending people who may not be able to afford gyms or our camp services to access those. So that's the first one coming up on May 3rd. I believe it's a Tuesday. So I will send, an email will be sent to your respective offices to do an invite for that. And the last signature piece that's coming up is on April 6th. It's in partnership with not just HMATA, but the Chamber of Commerce, Fowlers, Deerhurst, I want to say Muskoka Rock, and a number of other community partners. We're actually having our first in-person job fair in almost 3 years. It's going to happen at the Jack Beyond Arena. We are already circulating information out to attract employers. Again, we've approached HMATA, and we think it's a wonderful partnership that they're giving us some funding support to get this off the ground. And the ask, I guess, from this table is if you know anybody, whether your constituents are talking about employment or the challenges with the rising cost of living, or employers that are going, well, where do I find employees from? This is the perfect venue for that. So again, really wanted to come here and congratulate everyone around the table, talk about how not just the YMCA programs, but again, there are other community agencies in our neighborhoods that provide great work and will be eager to support your strategic planning and talk about 2 events that are coming up. And I know you have a busy agenda, so I don't know if there's any questions, or that's it for me.
Salim, thank you very much for that. It's actually breathtaking, all of the activities that the Y is doing. I'm quite stunned. And it's, incredibly important, as you just said. I have a couple of questions, but I will ask if there are any questions or comments from committee. Deputy Mayor Armour, followed by Councillor.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Celine. Thanks very much for coming today. Excellent deputation.
Thank you, sir.
My question is, what's the easiest way for the people who are looking for positions and jobs in Huntsville to get a hold of the YMCA? Is it knock on the door?
Walk in our door, give us a call, find us on Facebook. We try to make it as accessible as possible. We even recognize that, we serve, can I use the term greater Huntsville area? Because it's not just downtown Huntsville, right? It's beyond that. We recognize that individuals may have a challenge in getting to us because of transportation barriers. And so we are more than happy to support people online through Zoom or Teams or any of those internet connecting things. I'm not the best techie counselor. But we've also recognized that partnerships with the town is important. So we've been going to the library once a month to provide on-site services there. Recognizing there are...
Okay, good.
Was it that good or that bad, what I was saying? But recognizing there are different entry points for people, right? And we can't sit as an agency passively waiting for individuals to come seek us out. The market's changed, and the sensibilities of how people look for work and how people engage the labor market has changed. And so we can't just sit idly by and waiting for that to happen. And some individuals need support and maybe a little bit of hand-holding and recognizing what is the value, right? We go to a barber to get our hair cut. We go to the mechanic to get our cars fixed. And a lot of people don't make that correlation around employment and employment services. A lot of people think they can do it themselves. And so that's a long answer to a simple question, but there are a number of different entry points. But give us a call, find us on the internet, just drop in or come see us at the library.
Thank you for that. Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Salim, thank you so much for coming this morning. And it's so refreshing. It's a refreshing reminder to remind us what really you do and what the YMCA does for our community. And I love the fact that the partnerships that are created through the work that you do, that the YMCA does. But thank you for bringing it forward to us and bringing it to us to remind us what you do.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Yeah.
Again, I would underscore it, there are tons of agencies out there. I think the Y does fantastic work, but there are community living, Muskoka Seniors, the list goes on and on and on, and Rotary as well, right, Councillor Schumacher?
If I quickly, you made a reference to the ESL course, which I think is incredible, and you said it's a huge take-up, and I'm wondering if you can give us an idea of what the numbers look like for that, because that really implies our community is changing, and I think that's really interesting.
Our first course, I believe, and this is, so the YMCA is two branches, employment and learning services, or literacy services, and so it's been run by our literacy services, so I'd be remiss in saying these numbers are hard and fast, but I believe our first course was about 20 individuals. There are a number of local employers who've taken great strides in bringing over, attracting individuals from outside the country to support their labor needs, and so it's been a huge success. And there's a sense of community too,
Yeah.
right? So
No,
when there's
it's
not
great.
class, they still come over and hang out, which is great.
That's great. I just think that's amazing. So I don't see any other questions. Salim, thank you
Thank
for
you very,
coming
very
in.
much.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, all.
And some of us will most definitely be there May 3rd for sure, for the, okay. All right, with that, we're going to agenda item number 6, and I'm turning it over to Councillor Schumacher to take over the chair.
I need this thing. Okay. So I have, with Community Services, our first item, 6.1.1, is report number CS 2023-7 Stevenson District Lions Club Port Sydney Hall Lease Agreement Extension. And I read the motion. It is recommended that the town, moved by Bob Stone and seconded by Jason Fitzgerald. It is recommended that the town renew the terms of the current lease agreement with the Stevenson District Lions Club for an additional 5 years, with the option to renew for up to 3 additional 5-year terms, so for a total of up to 20 years. And further, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the lease agreement to the satisfaction of the Director of Community Services, and Greg Pilling is here to speak to the report. Any questions for Greg? Oh, you're going to speak first, and then I'll ask questions. There we go.
Thank you, and through you, I actually, the report, yeah, well, I'm good with that too, but just to add in, it's coming to the end of a long 20-year agreement with the Lions Club. They've done a lot of wonderful things in our community, and this is the opportunity to renew that agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So now, any questions? Because I did think the report pretty much spoke for itself, but... Okay, no questions for Greg? I will call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Well, that was easy. I get to sign this one before I forget. Okay, maybe not. There we go, got it. Thank you. So the next item is 6.1.2, and it is report number CS 2023-9, the Kent Park Public Art Installation Process. And I have a long one here to read, thank you. It is moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Cloutier. It is recommended that the staff be directed to develop a request for proposal, or an RFP, for an art installation at Kent Park that includes project location, scope, theme, timeline, and other aspects relevant to the project. And further that, the RFP will call for artists to submit ideas, sketches, and budget for a proposed project, along with a letter of interest, resume, and samples of past work. And further that staff will collaborate with the Huntsville Art Society in choosing the successful submission, and further that a maximum budget is not to exceed $25,000, including all taxes, professional artistic fees, production, fabrication, installation, and contingency fees be funded through the Art Acquisition Fund and offset by any fundraising and available sponsorship opportunities, and further that staff will report back with the successful submission. And Trish is here to speak to the report.
Good morning. Thank you for that. And through the chair. Just to bring some of you up to date, this is coming back from the previous council cycle. So last summer, when the Streetscape Revitalization Project was wrapping up at Kemp Park, council started a discussion about bringing public art to that space. So staff were directed to come back after meeting with community partners to investigate possibilities within Kemp Park that could possibly include an iconic art installation representative of Huntsville, partnering with local art organizations or artists, possibly a contest for citizens, seasonal installations, fundraising and sponsorship opportunities. So staff were asked also to put together some public art ideas for that location, some suggestions, and what the costs might be. So the steps that staff took in order to bring that information forward for you to consider today is there was broad community consultation through our My Huntsville page. So those results are within this report. There was also meetings with all of our local art organizations that Huntsville's engaged with to provide input into the process as well as creative ideas. And those ideas were submitted back to staff, and they're included in the appendix in this report, as well as you'll notice there's some youth art ideas and some other suggested outdoor art installations. There were also one-to-one meetings with the BIA and the Chamber of Commerce, as well as research with other municipalities, just to confirm what some of the common processes are or practices to acquire art through the municipal process. And finally, the public art policy has been followed within this process. The recommendation within the staff report is in line with that policy, and the staff recommendation is also responsive to the research and the consultation from the community. Finally, from a finance perspective, because that's always an important one, the suggested $25,000 would be funded through the Art Acquisition Fund. Those funds are there. In the staff report, it indicates the 2021 figure is just slightly over that. However, as of December 31st, 2022, the unaudited balance is just over $39,000. So we certainly wouldn't be draining that fund. Thankfully, the Huntsville Art Society has agreed to assist with this project, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Are there questions for Trish? I see Mayor Alcock first.
Okay, thank you, Chair Schumacher. And thanks, Trish, for the report. Just a couple of quick questions. One in reference in the motion, there's reference to funded through the Art Acquisition Fund and offset by any fundraising and available sponsorship opportunities. And I wondered if you have any thoughts around who is doing that fundraising or those sponsorship opportunities. Is that with town staff to go through that process?
Through you, that's a great question. That can be an enormous project, as you can probably appreciate. I don't think that that can be done by one person alone. In my conversation with a representative from the Huntsville Art Society, I sensed there was interest to support that process. So I think it would mean sitting down and developing a sponsorship and fundraising program that isn't within reason. Like, we'd want to set some timelines so that, you know, it wasn't something that would go on, you know, for a ridiculous amount of time.
Follow-up, if I may? Is that?
Sure.
Thank you for that. All right, so in essence, it's kind of undefined, that if, for example, an RFP came back and was within the $25,000 or whatever, then probably fundraising around that wouldn't be as necessary. This is if it's over and above the 25,000. And at that point, it would be determined who might be responsible for the fundraising. I'm just looking at it through the eyes of Haas, that I'm not sure they'd want to be in that role where it's their responsibility, but I might be misinterpreting that.
Is there a question there?
Kind of,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
It's sort of, yeah, sorry, Trish. It's the question would be, it sounds to me like that process is still not defined, that it's cross that bridge when you get to it, but it's not solely resting on Haas to do the fundraising. And that's when I read this, I wasn't sure if that's where the direction was.
Yes, I would agree that that's not solely sitting on them at all. I think that, staff would have a role, but I think, it would need to be within reason because it
Right.
could become all
All
consuming.
encompassing, right.
It could.
right.
So I think, it could be coordinated in such a way that it was put into a nice, neat package. But in fairness, that process hasn't started
Okay.
until we get direction. So the next step would really be to meet
Right.
with Haas and start defining that. I don't know, they might even know some individuals who might be interested, and those conversations haven't happened yet.
Right, okay. I have another, but I can wait.
Oh, okay, well, I'll go to Councillor Renwick and
Yep.
maybe Councillor Armour, and then back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Schumacher, and thank you, Trish, for the presentation. Obviously, I'm 100% in favor of having something at Kent Park. Love the idea, some of the suggestions that came through with the shading. I think that was a discussion that was brought up when we did Kent Park, that there was not enough shading there. So if an art installation can incorporate some shading as well as something iconic would be wonderful. I think further to what Mayor Alcock said about the fundraising and the sponsorship, I was a little unclear about that too, because it seems like there's an RFP that's going forward that's $25,000. There's no mention really within that RFP for sponsorship or fundraising. So they're two separate entities, basically. If someone submits an RFP, it would be for a maximum of $25,000 to create an art piece. Where does the fundraising and the sponsorship come in? Is that some down the road, or is that in addition to the $25,000?
So through the chair, that's a great question. So there's sort of two parts to that. So I think the fundraising could start at any point if we want to offset not spending the full $25,000 that's suggested in the motion. So, but the RFP would define that it wouldn't exceed. So if we were to, have a fundraising program, we didn't raise a penny, we still wouldn't exceed that value. The second part to that I would just suggest in the RFP, there is the option of including, a component in the RFP that the organization or the artist or whoever is submitting makes some sort of contribution. So, for example, the piece could be a value of, $50,000. That's probably a bit high. So let's say, $30,000, and $5,000 might be time that would make that, so it would still come in at $25,000, but the value is higher. And that might be part of our criteria of evaluating the art pieces, which still needs to be developed as that RFP process. But that's a component of fundraising as well.
Thank you, through you, and I understand that's what Brenda did. It was donated her time to the Tom Thompson's sculpture that she did. It was her donation to the community as her legacy kind of thing, too. Other questions? I thought I saw Deputy Mayor Armour raise his hand.
Thank you, through the Chair. This might be a little premature, but I'm just curious with the RFP process, will there be a portion of that where they have to, for security of the artwork itself? Because we know out front, Tom gets beat up sometimes, and we lost an ice sculpture there this year with someone knocked it over. So I just wonder if that's going to be part of the RFP, if how we actually secure the art so it doesn't get damaged or vandalized somehow.
Through the chair, that's a great question. I feel like that is something that we would have to, so I would think, there could be an agreement, like a maintenance agreement, something would need to be put in place. And I think the public art policy addresses that to ensure that that security is there. But I don't see that as being part of the RFP necessarily.
Back to you, Mayor Alcock. Oh, and then I'll go to Jason. He had a second.
Do you want to go first, Jane? No? Okay. Thank you, Chair Schumacher. Trish, I should say I'm really excited by this. I think this is great. My second question was around, I think it's, lots of thank yous to Haas for playing the role of judge. And, but I guess the question would be, given we all know some of us know what it's like to go through art installations in our community. And so I'm wondering if, in your discussions with Haas, if there's any room in there for public consultation, or has that been removed, given Haas is playing the role of a jury panel, basically. So my question, I'm sorry for being circuitous here, but is there a role for public input?
So through the chair, thanks for that question. I think we've done that consultation already. If you looked at the amount of participation, there was lots of, and this is something that could be wrapped up in the RFP. The public was quite clear. They want something in that park. If there's going to be something in that park, it needs to have a Muskoka feel. It needs to have a local theme. It needs to have a local artist inspiration. It needs to be something that's nature, reflective of the outdoors. It could be wildlife, trees, rocks, water. We've heard that. And I think that would be, we take that feedback from the community and we tie that into the RFP so that the artists have a focus.
Thank you for that, and I do appreciate it. I did look at this, but I also noticed other numbers in there, which suggest there's more than one person that says leave the park alone. So, as long as you see, there's an element of that in there. But you're absolutely right. Lots of public input already, and kudos to the Haas for taking on that role. Thank you.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair Schumacher. Thanks, Trish, for the report, and I think there's a lot of good ideas, a lot of good information here. I really like the idea of the little free art gallery. I know how much use the little libraries get used around in our community. I'm half wondering if this is something maybe we should separate, because I think it can be so enlightening, so inspirational for our community to have this, to be able to show their art, maybe get recognized through their art, but also for people to share their feelings and their creations with other people. So I can't help but think that this should be something that maybe we should look at aside from this and try and instill this in our community somehow. So sorry to get, make a broader scope for you, but I really love the idea.
Thank you, Chair Schumacher. Just a follow-up to what you said. So I did create a small little art gallery that was actually built by Rotary, and I believe the Huntsville Art Society also, the Huntsville Festival of the Arts has one as well. So it's not a difficult process to make one. I think it's a great idea to have something in the park that could be in Rivermill Park, it could be in Kent Park as well. But good suggestion, Councillor.
Thanks, Elena, for that. And I have seen it on occasion, but I'm wondering if we should expand upon it, because I know we have a lot of talented people in this community, and all we're going to do is encourage it and make it grow. So do we need a motion? Do we need to have staff look into it? I would like to see more little libraries in our community. I think it's just a wonderful thing that sets us aside from other communities and is inspirational for our artists. Or budding artists.
Is it a motion or is it a separate report that's going to need to come back? A separate motion? Okay. I see our clerk and CAO might be working on something, and yes, I would concur. I know, especially during COVID, I noticed a lot of people were out walking around doing the tour to see the Group of Seven paintings, right? So if we can even add to that, where people have the ability to tour around the town and see all the different aspects of art in our community, I think it just draws more to our downtown feel and to our community feel and to Huntsville in general. Yes, Councillor Fitzgerald. While we're waiting.
Adding to that, you reminded me of another thing. I loved all the rocks during COVID. They were, walking around with my daughter, and my daughter put them out of the community in Port Sydney with one of her older mentors, and they were inspirational. Not a lot of things positive to look forward to. So even things like that, we need to encourage it, more of it in our community. So.
CAO Corey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I believe as long as, Trish, that you feel that it doesn't infringe on the direction that's in the resolution before council, that it's something that you could just take note of and consider when you move forward. I don't believe it requires an amendment to the motion in front of us, unless you feel differently.
I do not feel differently.
Okay,
It was
thank
one of
you.
my favorites, and I'm so glad you pointed it out, because it's different, right, than all the other contributions in the appendix, so absolutely. Thank
So
you.
duly noted then, thank you.
Okay, then, since we don't have to amend it or add another motion, I will, if everyone's done asking questions of Trish, you're good? I will call the question then. All in favor? And that carries. And now I will pass it over to Councillor Fitzgerald to take over as chair for Operations and Protective Services.
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. All right. First up, we have a report 6.2.1, Ops 2023-6, Road Assumption Woodstream Drive, Subdivision S 2010-8, Phase 1. Brandon, good to see you again.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. So what we have here is a road assumption report, so we do understand there's some new members at the table, so I'm going to take a little bit of a second here and just explain the process so everybody understands. So what happens is a developer will make an application through the Town of Huntsville's Planning Department for a plan of subdivision. From there, the Town of Huntsville will enter into a subdivision agreement with the developer. Through that, we are adhering to and agreeing to assume the road once it's built through that subdivision process and reaching that level of certification, and of course also built to municipal standard. So what we have here is the section of Woodstream Drive off Muskoka Road 3. It has now been built to municipal standard, certified by the developer's engineer, which is a requirement. They have now asked staff to take full ownership for maintenance of that. Staff have now completed inspections, and it is as per the subdivision agreement and drawings assumed by the town. So second part of that, along with the adoption of these roads, comes capital costs, maintenance costs. So there is about a $320,000 capital cost to this road over 20 years. That would be for the reconstruction value. And then there is about a $5,000 yearly annual maintenance cost for these roads for snow removal and plowing and such like that. So a standard process that the town has, a little bit of education for yourselves. And so that's for your information only. So we are taking full ownership of that road and declared as a municipal highway.
Thanks, Brandon. I'll ask if there's any questions. Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. Thank you for the update and because being a new councillor, it's always nice to sort of hear the background of what goes on. So the $320,000 goes into the capital fund if you were going to replace this road, correct? If it just goes, it's the replacement value or the upkeep value of this road. Okay, so further to that, it's a $5,000 fee for maintenance, you're saying. Is that in this year's budget, or would that be going into next year's budget?
I believe it would be going to the 2024 budget.
2024, okay.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, that's just for information. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Next up is report number Ops 2023-3. And Tarmo's going to guide us through that, but I will read this motion first. Moved by Dion Schumacher, seconded by Corey Clark. It is recommended staff be directed to make necessary improvements to the slope and in-water concrete structure on town lands, beginning in water leading up to the intersection of Forbes Hill Drive and Camp Kitchen Road, to improve traction, remove obstacles, and make the water exit safer and more user-friendly for triathletes and other water access users. And further that, the works be funded from the approved parks operating budget. Tarmo.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. Good morning. This was actually identified through last year's triathlon as they were preparing for the triathlon and doing the different training exercises and things like that, that the slope is it's covered in dirt. And then when they exit the water, of course, dirt turns to mud when it gets wet, and it's a fairly steep slope. Triathlon went in and did some work on their own, which was not approved by the town at that time, which was subsequently undone with the condition that we would be bringing this to council's attention. Primary reason is that this would become a new service level, not so much in cost, but in time of existing staff time to maintain that each year to make sure that it remains safe. There are a couple of aspects of this. So the in-water portion, there's a concrete slab in the water that actually has rebar and things like that, and it's starting to stick out. So you can see as people are using that to exit the water, that becomes a bit of a safety issue, so we would need to take care of that. And then we would have to remediate the slope of the hill using different aggregates to prevent the mud formation and make it easy access in and out. This is not only for the use of triathlon. There are a lot of people that use that location for recreation, access to the river, so forth. So this is a broader issue beyond simply the triathlon.
Thanks, Tarmo. Questions? Councillor Stone.
Thanks. So as you said, it's a nice amenity space anyway for our locals. Is the dock in good shape, and are there other enhancements that we should make at that location at this time to make it even better for our citizens to enjoy this waterfront?
Through you, Chair. What I would say is the dock is in great shape. The dock is not an issue. In terms of the discussion related to enhancements, I would say taking that to the proper committee, in this case, the Community Services Master Plan and Waterfront Strategy Committee, for discussion in terms of what we would do with it with the future would probably be the best path forward.
Good. I believe, Councillor Schumacher, did you have? I thought you did.
Somewhat. Yeah, at first I was going to say you kind of answered my question, actually, when you sort of said it is for all uses, so it's not that we're going to go to Trisport or any of them to ask for money for this, because it is benefiting our community. The work, though, that needs to be done in water, does that need permission from MNR?
Through you, Chair. That work won't, because it's actually rectifying an existing structure, and we're not actually disturbing the shoreline.
Councillor Cluche.
Through you, Chair. So the concrete that's in the water there, would that be from the original boat launch that was there? It is, so that's been there
Through
a
you,
long
Chair.
time.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. So the other end, you're talking about the boat launch that's there now. At the other end where is that the only part that we're doing? Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
All right, any further question, Councillor, Deputy Mayor Armour?
Thanks, Chair Fitzgerald. I'm curious, so I think it says $5,000 we're going to invest in this, and that's just going to be like I guess, a gravel base, something that's with the mud. How does it fall into accessibility? Do we have to address those issues if we're touching?
Through you, Chair, my understanding of the accessibility is that it's an improvement to an existing structure, or, sorry, it's a repair of an existing structure. So it's not an improvement, it's a repair, making it safe in its existing state. If we were to actually change the use, or if through some kind of a process through the committee, we're actually adding amenities, then the discussion of accessibility and what we would need to do to bring it up to today's standards would be part of the discussion.
Any further questions regarding this? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Tarmo. And moving right along, I have motion moved by Nancy Alcock and seconded by Bob Stone. It's recommended that committee approve a change of service level for the Bunnell lift locks to weekends only, including holiday Mondays, for the 2023 boating season. And further that staff be directed to develop a communication strategy and plan to communicate the changes to the public. And further that staff be directed to monitor the usage of the locks, including number of vessels and revenues, and provide council with a report on the usage of locks in November of 2023 with a service level recommendation for the 2024 boating season. Tarmo.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. Our staff undertook over the past season to count and carefully track the number of vessels and number of trips through the locks. What became readily apparent was that the locks get very little use when we're open 7 days a week. In fact, starting in May, when they traditionally open up, through to October, outside of the peak period being July 1st through to September, long weekend, outside of that, there's very little use of the locks at all. During that peak season, when you actually look at the numbers, we're seeing very high usage on Saturdays and Sundays, and little bit higher than the rest of the week on Fridays. But for the rest of the week, and we have to remember that there are some holiday Mondays included in this, even Mondays don't have very high traffic through there. It is costing a lot to operate these locks by staffing it 7 days a week. So we do need 2 full-time people through that summer period. Now, these are not full-time employees. They're just there full-time during that peak period. So these would be seasonal employees that we hire for that time. So what we're proposing is to take and only have one person dedicated to that on a 40-hour work week, basically, so Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and then redirect the other budgeted resource that we have for the locks to other parks work that we need to have done. So this is an initiative that's looking at low use, high cost for the town, making that more efficient, and then redirecting those resources to where we need them elsewhere. So maximizing the approved resources that we do have in the budget. I will say that the estimates are that the use will actually go up in for the locks if we move to this model, and the usage will go up Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Rough, quick and dirty estimate was taking basically 50% of the traffic on Thursdays and Mondays, and people will just adjust their schedules, and they'll still be using the amenities downtown. I think that's the biggest benefit to this, is people coming in by boat to visit the downtown for ice cream restaurants and so forth. And they're primarily doing that on weekends to begin with, so that will just adjust more tightly to the weekends. So that's what I have to offer there.
Thanks, Tarmo. And Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald, and thank you, Tarmo, for the report. I think you answered my question. It sounds like you're changing it to Friday, Saturday, Sundays. So your motion refers to committee approve a change in service level for the Brunel lift locks to weekends only, and weekends only including Friday. Okay, should it say including Friday, or is it understood that Friday is part of a weekend? To me, I was a bit confused when I read that, and I was happy when you said Friday in your recommendation. I don't know, am I being a stickler?
Why don't we ask the clerk?
The clerk? I'm going to ask the clerk. Yep. If the motion refers to, we're changing it to weekends only, but the recommendation is actually Friday, Saturday, Sunday, should it include Friday specifically, or is it understood that weekends only means Friday, Saturday, Sunday? I know that's what Tarmo, and it was good that you said that, because it certainly, the numbers were higher on Friday than other days, so, am I?
Through you?
Go ahead.
We can absolutely add that in. Do we have any, I'm just thinking if we have a policy that specifically states a definition of what a weekend is? If not, then I would say let's add that in just for clarification.
I'm not aware of any policy that would be there, and I would say that we should probably get a little clarity around holiday Mondays, because the intended word is excluding holiday Mondays, not including in the motion as well. So
I think it would be really helpful, because if this is the policy for the next foreseeable future, and it's a new council around the table, it might all of a sudden Friday might be gone, poof. So I think it would be good for clarification.
Thank you, Mayor Alcock, and we'll give the clerk a few minutes to come up with something there, and I'll go to Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. And I'm sorry, Councillor Arm. Through you, Tarmo. What happens to the people that show up on a Monday or Tuesday? And I think you did mention that there should be a really good campaign to educate our residents and our visitors, because I would hate if somebody came along, and it'll happen at some point, that somebody will show up and they won't be able to go through the locks. And what do you, I've never been through the locks, so what do you do if that happens? Do you have to go all the way around, or do you, what do you do? Okay, yeah.
Tarmo?
through you, Chair, the option that we would be putting through in a communication strategy is that there are boat launches on either side of the locks that can be used if you really do need to or want to move your boat from one body of water to another.
Follow up, you're good? Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks there, Chair Fitzgerald. When we're looking at the numbers here, are you anticipating the sell of the monthly or yearly lock lift, the passes are going to remain the same? So are you going to be reducing the price because instead of buying a 7-day pass, you're only buying a 3-day pass virtually?
Through you, Chair. We would be looking at probably bringing back something to council related to that 7-day pass. We would be anticipating the 7-day pass sales would either drop or disappear in its entirety, and it would be on a per trip basis because at the current cost structure, it doesn't make any sense to buy a 7-day pass.
Follow up?
Well, not so much follow-up to that aspect. I just want to make sure we're going to be addressing that issue. I wish this had came forward during their budget procedures because there's savings here that we probably could have maybe rerouted. But I see that in the report, you stated that the money's going to be used for other park amenities in
Through you, Chair. No, the cost savings that we would be anticipating to have come in the form of actually generating some revenue here. The revenues that we would be generating would be going into capital to help offset some of the maintenance costs and repairs costs for the locks and operating the locks. The actual the mechanism through which we'll actually find those savings is that we, instead of having 2 people working there through the summer, we'll only require 1. So we would take that 1 person and we would put them on other tasks in the parks so that within the existing budget, we're optimizing our parks operations.
An offset in SWB, basically, in parks. Any further follow-up?
You can go ahead. I have a couple more other questions, but you can move on.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, Chair Fitzgerald, and I think you pretty much had answered it, Tarmo, but, so if somebody did want to come into Concert on the Dock on a Wednesday night, they would just have to find somewhere else to launch their boat if they wanted to come in by boat to do that.
Through your chair, yes, that would be correct.
Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald, and I apologize, I should have asked this sooner, but in the report, it says the season passes are available at $920 per year, and if you buy ahead of May 1st, it's $75. Does that make sense, or am I reading that incorrectly? It's on page 40. Seasons passes are available at a cost of $920 per year, with an early purchase price before May 1st of $75. Is that supposed to be $750?
Yes, that would be a missed zero on the 75.
Thank you, that's what I thought. Okay, I was going to say, that's a good deal.
Thank you for catching that, Councillor Renwick, and I'll give the clerk another minute to maybe make that amendment as well. When you're ready, you can let me know. And in the meantime, I'll go to Deputy Mayor Armour.
I'm just reading the motion, so I'm good right now. Thanks.
I didn't realize it was on the screen. No, I'm going to come and get a copy. Screen too, so everyone can see it. All right, any further questions on that? I actually had go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks very much. I'm just going to basically say I really don't support this. I think that Lock's been running for so many years, and you know I've used it numerous times. I know lots of people who live on the north side and the south side who use it a lot. And it's just one of those amenities that we use that we seem to lose money on. It's no different than other operations that we run that don't run, you know, at a full. I would rather see us hire somebody, run it 7 days a week, and if we can't staff it those days, then we post them those days than actually shutting it down. But I'm not in favor of this motion at all.
Your Worship.
Thank you, Chair, Mr. Chair. I actually agree with the Deputy Mayor. I understand the logic for sure, but you know, you look at the chart that refers to the other days, and you still have 47 on Monday or 62 on Tuesday. It's not 2 or 3. It's not 10. It's 62. You know, as an example, and I know that that's not every week, but as you know, this is what we were given, and I think that the reference to this is something that we've always provided. It is part of our history, and it still makes us a boating community, and you know, I know people who have used the locks, and it was always a really special outing. And so I'm not sure, I know he made reference to the savings that, you know, and we could use it elsewhere. But I tend to agree with Deputy Mayor Armour. I'm not sure I support this. But I appreciate the rationale.
I was doing some quick math there. Thank you, Mayor Alcock, for your comments, and Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. I would have to agree with the Deputy Mayor Armour. And I think that's what I was struggling with, not just your name, but the fact that it is a service that's been provided for a long time, and I would have a hard time not allowing, like, having people to turn around and go somewhere else to make it to our downtown or to our community. So I would be, I am not in support of this motion to reduce it down to weekends.
Tarmo, you'd like to respond to that one?
No, through you, Chair, I just want some clarity around the numbers that Mayor Alcock referenced in terms of 62. That's for the entire season. That's not in a day. That's not the per day trip number. That is for, so it would be 1 or 2 boats that day for all the entire summer season.
Oh.
Okay, so I just wanted to be very, very clear on that. It's not 62 boats per day. That's the for the season numbers.
It's 198 trips through the locks, and that would actually probably reduce it to half because they're probably 2-way trips. So that would be $101 per use of going through the lock, $202 if it's someone going through and returning back.
If
So
I
I just
may
for
jump,
clarity,
okay,
that's
so I apologize. So I'm responding, so it is from July 1st through to September 5th. That period, there are 62 in total on Tuesday, from July 1st to September 5th in total,
198 in total.
for those Monday through Thursday.
Roughly speaking, 12 Tuesdays.
Yes.
So you divide that number by 12.
Yeah, okay, my apologies. My apologies, I was misreading that. Okay, yeah, that, okay.
Okay, good,
All right.
good conversation, everyone.
Thank
I
you. Thank you
think-
for keeping me on my toes. Thank you.
Councillor Stone?
Yes, I just wanted to make that clarity. So on Tuesdays, the biggest number through the weeks that we're going to be canceling is 62. And there's over 62 days, so that might be 1 trip a day all summer long on a Tuesday, and that's the busy day through the week. So I do support this motion. I think that we should continue to look at reducing levels of service to find efficiencies and saving money. So I do support this motion.
Thank you for that. And Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Chair. I'll echo a little bit of Councillor Stone's comments that we've just came through a very difficult budget. I've had many calls, I'm sure everyone here has as well, from people that are concerned about funds and where money is being spent. So I think I'm in support of this as well. I think we need to look for savings, and that could involve service level changes. So I think I'll support this. Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Clark. Mayor Alcock?
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. And yes, I will support this as long as we do include the Friday, Saturday, Sunday as amended, as proposed to be amended.
Okay, I believe our CAO has some information she'd like to share with us.
Just very briefly, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is an example to Councillor Stone's question during the budget process. Do staff look at areas where there's the potential of a reduction of service? So it wasn't that we chose to do this. It was looking at a service that's provided and realizing that the costs associated with it. So just for clarification, I think to follow up on your question a few weeks ago, Councillor Stone, this is an example of how staff would bring a reduction of service levels forward for committee consideration.
Thank you, Madam CAO. Tarmo?
Also, what I would like to add to the discussion for council's consideration is the fact that this is basically a trial for this summer, that we would be bringing back a report in November with the usage, the counts, and we could add in the number of trips, to Councillor Renwick's point, of people who, or number of complaints about not being open during the week. So that would be the intent, is to have a look, see how this is working, and then if the will of the public changes council's decision, so be it.
Thank you, Tarmo. Councillor Schumacher?
Thank you, through you, Chair Fitzgerald Tarmo. Yeah, I do appreciate this, and that we are looking at ways and sort of, being responsive to the community. As you said, if there's going to be feedback, and this is a trial period for this summer to see, so I'm on board. My question, I guess, is mostly when you do staff the locks, has it been like students for the summer, those kind of jobs? So it's not like it's a huge permanent staff that you're kind of moving around?
Through you, Chair, that's correct. It's mainly summer students here that we're talking about.
All right, any further questions? I did have one question, Tarmo, and that's how many actually vessels can we get through there in a day, maximum? I know that's a very difficult question to ask, but to provide an answer with, but if we're gonna increase the level of traffic, I think, on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and holiday Mondays. And I've been through many lock systems, and sometimes you just don't get through, and you're there for the night, so.
So, to you, Chair, what I wouldn't anticipate an issue with not getting people through, but I don't know the answer to the maximum number through.
I'd be curious that we could track that this season, just to know. So, our clerk is ready, I think, to put something up on the screen. If there are no further questions, I've read the motion, and I'm going to read, moved by Nancy Alcock and seconded by Bob Stone. It is recommended that the first paragraph in the motion be struck out and replaced with the following. Committee approve a change in service level for the Brunel lift locks to Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays only, and including holiday Mondays for the 2023 boating season. All in favor? Can I put back up, please? And that's carried. And the original motion as amended. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Termo. All right. Carrying right along. Moved by Bob Stone, seconded by Dan Armour, is recommended that committee grant a one-time exemption to the Town of Huntsville Bylaw 2015-25, being a bylaw to regulate and govern the use of parks and outdoor public places within the Town of Huntsville to 1. Allow overnight camping for the exclusive use by Youth for Christ Canada's Highland Chapter in August 2023. Number 2, allow campfires pending special event advisory team approval. Tarmo, did you forget about this one? Go ahead.
So further to discussions that were held at the previous council related to Pittman's Bay and the extensive reporting in terms of bringing Pittman's Bay use back to the original intended use based on the 1951 agreement. Typically speaking, overnight camping and campfires would not be permitted at Pittman's Bay, both through town bylaw as well as zoning, and then finally there are challenges related to insurance. So what we're looking for is council's approval to exempt the church group, which falls into the original intended use of the 1951 agreement, to be permitted to do the exemption to the town's bylaw, with the understanding that the church group would have to have the required insurance naming the town additionally insured.
Thank you, Tarmo. And are there any questions? Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Chair Fitzgerald. Not so much a question. I'm just wondering if, I wonder if we anticipate more of these coming forward, and instead of having to come through this format each time, if we could maybe delegate the CEO or somebody to review these and then be able to make those decisions, because obviously, you know, they need insurance and who's going to be there and the cost associated with it and all that stuff. So I'm just thinking of just that one extra step that would give either the director or the CEO the opportunity to approve some of these if they're a church group and they meet the requirements of the agreement from 1951.
I thank you for your comments, Deputy Mayor Armour, and I tend to agree for just for expedience of these requests coming forward that I would tend to agree. I think our worship would like to comment on it as well, and perhaps the CA has some comments.
Thank you for that, Chair Fitzgerald. I absolutely agree. I think that's a great suggestion. And I think our CAO nodded in support of it, but she'll speak to it. But I think it makes all the sense in the world, especially while, this fits the mandate for now, and at some point it will be at the committee, one of the committees for future discussion. And in the meantime, if there's something that fits the criteria, and this does,
Thanks.
then it doesn't make sense coming to this council.
Thanks, Mayor Alcock. Councillor Stone.
Thank you. I don't disagree in the short term, but can I ask Director Ukivi, when is this coming back as to review the use ongoing? Because I know we set it aside.
Through you, Chair. The report was to come back in the third quarter of this year. One of the kind of early thoughts at this point in time is with the creation of the new Community Services Master Plan and Waterfront Strategy Committee, that it would probably be best to take it through that committee first. So I don't know what that does to the timelines quite yet. However, that said, there will be a report back in terms of what the plan is in terms of staff evaluation of Pittman's Bay use coming in Q3.
Thank you. In the short term, I agree with Deputy Mayor Armour.
Okay, I'll go to our CAO next to enlighten us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So our Director of Finance has pointed out that there is a bylaw that's currently in place that restricts the fires and overnight camping. So it's more of a procedural question to our clerks, is can we delegate authority to a staff member when there's a provision in a bylaw?
I'm getting some help from our clerk, who is shaking her head yes. So yes, we will, they would be exempt from that bylaw for this purpose. So I will work on some wording, and if I could possibly ask for a little bit of a break on this one, just so we have the correct wording and everything, because we'll have to amend our delegation of authority bylaw.
Yeah, and I think maybe we should take a couple more questions before we actually go and massage this motion. So, Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Chair. Just when you're, this is actually for Crystal when she's doing the motion. I like to see it just state for the 2023 season.
Okay. Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chairman. Is it not through the seat application as well that the bylaw is covered under the seat application when you do a fire? If you want to have a fire in a certain location, when there's if someone applies for a seat application for Rivermill Park, you have to go through the seat application. So that's more of a comment, maybe.
Okay. I think we've addressed it through the new motion. I do have a question regarding the fact of insurance and camping and fires. And I know that we have insurance issues, and I've asked this question a few times, and no one has the answer, so I think we need to find the answer out. Are we not able to obtain insurance because of our bylaw? Is the first question. Does our bylaw procure us from not obtaining insurance because we have a bylaw of no overnight camping, no fires? Is that why we can't get insurance?
Can I answer?
Absolutely.
Okay, sorry.
Director McKenzie.
So, I'm just trying to think how to word this. So it's not that we can't get insurance, but currently we have a couple things. We have a bylaw that says that we do not allow campfires on town-owned parks. So it's very clear on that. It also says no overnight camping, and it also says no overnight parking. And that property is also not zoned as a campground. So that's the other issue. So right now, there's a bunch of things, but it is partially the zoning as well. The other thing is campground operations are not necessary or are not considered a municipal operation, so it would not be included in our general insurance, our general municipal insurance program. It'd be something that we have to go out and get covered, like separately or within our policy, but we would have to show to them what what we're doing to mitigate any risks for those operations. And we haven't dove into what would be needed for campground operations, because we've never had those before.
Okay, so I think this has been an issue for a long enough period of time. I think that as chair, I would like to see concrete answers to all those questions in this third quarter report so we can make an informed decision and figure out how we best move forward with the situation. So I hope that that happens. Any further questions? Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Chair Fitch. I'm just curious, should we be getting answers to these questions prior to actually signing a contract with the church and having them have campfires, et cetera, there for a week?
I'm going to see if anyone wants to try and tackle that question. I'm not seeing anyone too eager, unless the mayor thinks she would like to answer it.
Well, if
Or
I
comment
may,
further.
Chair Fitzgerald, I just, in this particular motion, we're saying council exemption could be conditionally granted. It could be granted on condition that the Highland YFC secures the required insurance of $5 million commercial general liability to cover overnight camping and campfires. So we're not having to deal with this on this particular motion. That's covered. So I'm not sure why we're having to answer all of those questions when we're in fact saying you can do it as long as you provide the required insurance. So to me, I think this motion stands as it is.
I'm happy with the motion too. The report in the third quarter came up, so I just wanted to define the parameters and the expectations there. Madam CAO, you had some comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to add that what we're doing by requiring them to have the insurance policy is transferring the risk. So as long as, and that was the issue that we ran into last season when we had committed bookings, they could only go forward as long as they had the insurance policy. So although the municipality always has a level of risk, it just reduces our liability if they have the $5 million. So we're transferring liability.
Thank you. Councillor Cloutier.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Also in this too, like if there's a fire ban on, like I think they have to follow those rules, right? So even though they have it in the contract that they're allowed to have a fire, as long as they have the understanding that if there's a fire ban on, there is no fires. Right. Yep.
All right, we've had some good discussion. Are there any further comments or questions? I don't think so. I will maybe suggest to the clerk that she does need 5 more minutes and we'll have a biological break. Okay, just to confer. So we'll take a 5-minute biological break and be back at 10:22. And we're live, folks, and we're back. And I'm going to give the clerk a minute to gather her motions and amended motions, and I'll ask one more time if there are any further questions regarding this motion. Okay, so we're going to, I need a seconder. It was moved by Councillor Armour and Councillor Stone. Thanks for appreciating my vision challenges. Crystal, it is recommended the following be added to the end of the motion, and further that, notwithstanding bylaw 2015-25, the Director of Operations and Protective Services or Chief Administrative Officer has delegated authority to approve any future requests similar in nature and in compliance with the 1951 agreement for the 2023 season to include: 1, allow overnight camping and parking. 2, allow campfires pending special event advisory team approval. And number 3, conditional on the applicant obtaining sufficient general liability insurance coverage as required by the municipality. Okay. Last chance for questions. Motion as amended. All in favor? And that's carried. And main motion as amended. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, everyone. I get to relieve the chair now to Development Services. Let's see, we've got the A-team here today.
Welcome, gentlemen. This is the exciting part of the committee meeting. Let's make it that way. You guys both look great, by the way.
Thank you.
We have a report from Andrew Stiller today on the amendment to the Administrative Monetary Penalty System, AMPS, bylaw 2022-54. And with that, we do have a recommendation. So it's moved by Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Clark. It's recommended that the amendments to the Administrative Penalty System bylaw 2022-54, as outlined in report DEV-2023-3, be approved. And furthermore, that the amending bylaw be forwarded to council for approval. Floor is yours, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this report outlines the request from the Finance Department to issue an AMP, or Administrative Monetary Penalty, which basically is just another tool to enforce and gain compliance with various bylaws. For the Finance Department, it would be related to the MAT tax as it applies to remittance and reporting. So if either of those are not done, Finance could issue an AMP on behalf of the municipality, again, looking for compliance. And any questions? I'm here.
Do we have any questions from committee members? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion is read. And that carries. Thanks very much. Now we have an amendment to the parking control bylaw. Again, Andrew and Chris are here for this. So we have a motion again. This is moved by Councillor Renwick, seconded by Councillor Cloutier. It's recommended that committee approve the amendment to parking control bylaw 2017-66 attached as Schedule A to report DEV-2023-20, and furthermore that the amending bylaw be forwarded to council for approval. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The report basically is to change Dara Howell Way from a no parking area to a fire route, basically increasing the fine from $50 to $100. Request coming from Fire Chief Monahan, and as you're all aware, I don't think I have to say it, but I will, Dara Howell Way has been a very contentious area for parking, not parking uses, things like that for several years now. So we're hoping that this will deter more people from parking there with a $100 fine and being signed as a fire route where vehicles could be towed as well.
Do you have any questions from the committee? Councillor Stone.
Just a comment, having lived the nightmare of parking down there for many years, this will go a very long way to help the traffic continue to move, and the abuse of parking there has been absolutely horrible. So I hope this fixes the problem for everyone involved. Thank you.
Councillor Cluche.
Through you, Chair. On the fire road, if they get the $100 ticket, why isn't the vehicle being towed right away? Why is it, so they get the ticket and then, okay, then they get mad and all this. Why isn't it being towed right away? Because it is a fire route, so it should be removed immediately.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. Towing a vehicle under the current parking bylaw is always an option. So some of the offenses in the parking bylaw for parked outside a designated space, I want to say a $20 ticket, $15 ticket, as opposed to a ticket and a tow. Now, I understand that parking in a fire route is a more serious offense, so it's always an option. It's not one that we have exercised throughout my career. I've had vehicles relocated, if you will, for triathlon, but never actually removed. I can say a few years ago, the OPP received a complaint, and it was in the area of Darragh Hallway, and they actually removed the vehicle under the Highway Traffic Act when there was no ticket issued for that. Just by the time we got there, the car was already on the hook, so to speak. Yeah.
So that always is an option.
It is.
So do you have any more questions? Oh, Councillor Renwick.
Sorry, thank you, Chair, Deputy Armour, Mayor, sorry. I'll get it straight one day. I concur with Councillor Stone that being now in the downtown core with parking, thank you for doing this, because I think it's something that has been needed to be done. And I would echo what Councillor Cloutier said, that if we could tow them a couple of times, it might sort of set a precedent and say, if you park there, you're going to get a $100 ticket and you're going to get towed. They might think twice about it, because right now they don't care. They just still park there, but money does speak, so the $100 would probably help, but a towing would also help. So just a comment, thank you.
I guess there's no more questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That carries. All right, moving on to 6.3. It's 6.3.3. This is a report number DEV 2023-33, bylaw enforcement yearly stats for 2022, and this is for information. Andrew, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Report quite lengthy, lots of numbers, lots of totals, lots of graphs, charts, things like that. Really not too much to highlight. Kind of like a continuous or a different year coming out of restrictions by the province, things getting busier, more questions, things like that for the department. But anyone has any questions about the graphs or charts, totals, I'm here happy to answer.
Do we have any questions from the committee? Councillor Stone.
Thank you. About bylaw enforcement, I know we're losing or have lost an enforcement officer. Do we have another one in the wings?
I'll have Chris answer that.
So thank you through you, Deputy Armour. Yeah, we are looking to complete the interview process this week with hopes that we will be offering a position by end of week and get, a fill in that. As you're aware, that is a property standard / short-term rental position, which I'll be speaking to later on. But yeah, we're real excited to potentially welcome someone sooner than later, so yeah.
That's good news, because we do have a busy season coming ahead of us. Do we have any more questions? Seeing none, that was just for information. Thanks very much. Moving on to 6.3.4. Again, Andrew, don't go anywhere. This is report number DEV 2023-34, idling bylaw update and draft. I do have a motion here. It's moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. It's recommended that committee approve the amendments to the idling bylaw attached as Schedule A to Report DEV 2023-34, and furthermore, that the amending bylaw be forwarded to council for approval. It's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, yes, this is the idling bylaw, all part of our bylaw review process. The bylaw has been reviewed and updated. Several new additions when it comes to definitions, some being removed, some being changed. The biggest one, well, maybe the biggest item to maybe point out is the bylaw itself is almost 20 years old. It was due for an update and a change, and not too much to highlight with that when it comes to the changes. More of a lot of housekeeping and clerical items, definitions being added, maybe changed a little bit from 20 years ago. And I'm here for any questions.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, guys, for the report. So, I don't know about others, but I've had lots of calls and emails from residents concerned about idling transport in residential neighborhoods. So, many of the residents felt there was really no recourse for them with the old bylaw from 20 years ago. So, it's nice to see an update to the idling bylaw. I have a couple questions. So, if the changes to this bylaw are approved, will residents that have filed complaints already about idling transports be followed up with? And second, will transport truck owners that already had complaints against them from residents be followed up with and asked to get a letter from a mechanic in regards to idling time, or do they have to file new complaints?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So because of the changes, not a new bylaw, but an update, there's going to have to be new complaints. If the old bylaw didn't suit or fit the situation, and these amendments do, then a new complaint would have to be received, and then the owner of the vehicle be spoken to and advised of these changes and made aware of the new amendments and bylaw.
Follow up. Go ahead. Thank you, Chair. So I guess one concern I have about the requirement for the a transport operator to get a letter from a licensed mechanic if there's a dispute is that some operators, by the nature of their business, may have friends that are mechanics that could provide a bias letter so as to allow for longer idling. I'd be a little concerned about that scenario if we had a long-standing dispute between a resident and an operator. So I just want to ask the question is, why didn't we specify a worst-case maximum idling time for transport-type vehicles? This would have saved time trying to get an operator to comply with getting a letter from a mechanic and eliminate the potential of a biased letter. We could ask for a letter if the operator wanted to idle past the maximum idle time.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I'll try and stake handle that one if that's all right. So, you know, it is a little contentious with transport trucks and, you know, different vehicles needing longer idling time and everything like that, right? What we were hoping with the letter itself is, as you've kind of suggested, Councillor Clark, to get an idea of why they actually need that longer idling time. It may be, you know, auxiliary devices that are on the vehicles, you know, in these colder temperatures. I know in a general state, the manufacturer directly recommends the longer idling time and things like that. We didn't want to put the municipality in a position where we're seeking enforcement on a shorter idle time, and heaven forbid something happens out on the road that would, you know, could potentially come back to the municipality, right? So we would hope, you know, people would be honest and we would be getting, you know, legitimate letters from mechanics and things like that that actually detail. But we will definitely be reviewing those in depth, and if something doesn't look right, which we may be able to utilize, you know, some of our public works staff or even mechanics in the area to go, you know, can we check in, does this make sense for, you know, this type of vehicle? Obviously, I understand from a profession, they would probably err on the side of caution for sure, not physically seeing that vehicle, but it was trying to find that kind of medium ground where, you know, we're satisfying both parties in this realm, right? So, yeah.
Any more questions? Oh, Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair Armour. Along the lines of Councillor Clark's questions, I had the same questions, and I think, you know, I'm thinking of one situation in particular, and I appreciate the response from both of you around that. My question is, it still sounds in the bylaw like the onus is on the complainant to get this in motion, right? And so if in the situation I'm thinking of, the complainant comes back and says, all right, here's the situation, it starts at 4:30 in the morning every morning, and so that's now on file. What happens after that if the, you know, so you know, we go out right away, we send a letter, how do we ensure that there's a speedy response to that? Is there a timeline? Or do we send out, you have 30 days to comply? So I'm just curious about that. And and my second part to it is a follow-up to Councillor Clark's about what about if they go to any mechanic? Is there any way we can kind of specify a verified mechanic or something like that? Chris, to what you were saying, that maybe we would check that so that we don't have that situation where it's, you know, I've got a friend who will sign this and it pretty much will state that I have to run my vehicle for an hour, right? So there are a couple of, to me, they're not loopholes, but it's a bit loose around that. And to me, I see the onus being on the person that is the complainant. And I'm just curious about the timing around that.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So to answer the first part of your question, yes, yes, and yes. They will be spoken to. They could be sent letters. They could be given a deadline or a time frame to fix or alter something. But the biggest thing is speaking to that person either face-to-face or even a phone call to make them aware of the bylaw and the idling restrictions when it comes to their vehicle. As for the second part,
I'd be happy to continue that on. So I believe the bylaw does speak to a certified mechanic to provide us with the letter. You know, in that general realm, we would hope that if they are certified, that they would be, you know, it would be no different than seeking a professional engineer or an architect or anything like that. They're held to a liable standard, right? So, so that, you know, the intent isn't to be loose on that. The intent is to provide us with more teeth that if there is an issue, we have the ability to move in. And like Mr. Stiller suggested, we have the ability to put them on notice and potentially follow up with, if there isn't compliance, obviously, we can look at the AMP system, we can look at penalties directly in the bylaw itself, right? So it does give us a little bit more teeth in this realm, and I know the frustration in the aspect that's going on right now. This does speak to that, so yeah, okay.
Thank you for that, thanks.
Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, Chair Armour. Does this speak to drive-throughs and people in their car in a drive-through situation? Like, I know in COVID, the lineups were quite long and somebody was probably waiting more than 5 minutes. And now we have situations where the staffing is less than ideal in some of these locations. Do businesses get a copy of this bylaw? Are they aware that this exists? Or is this an exemption as well that I didn't see?
thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So as it pertains to the drive-through itself, say on the property of a coffee shop, if you're within that property, it's not considered a highway. It's when traffic backs up onto or into a turning lane where you could be waiting more than 5 minutes. Hopefully not, but yes, with COVID and staffing issues, there are several factors that could delay your getting on the property, your order, and picking up your item sort of idea. But no, it doesn't address that. the biggest reason would be the vehicle. Yes, it's sitting there, yes, it's idling, but it's not in park, it's in drive. And so they're just waiting to advance as vehicles go through. And I think that would be very difficult to enforce.
Do you have any other questions? Oh, Councillor Clark, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. One last one. So I just don't think that long-standing complaints should have to file a new complaint. I mean, we've known about, if there's a particular complaint, we would have known about it, especially if it's a long-standing complaint. I think that we should be more proactive about that rather than having the complainant file a new complaint, especially when we already know about it and it's been a long-standing one. I could see that being very frustrating for somebody that has already been trying to deal with a situation and then to have to go all through a new process all over again. I don't really think we should make people have to go through that. Thank you.
Chris?
I concur, and yeah, we can definitely do a follow-up with the current situation, no problem, so, yeah.
It's good to hear. Any more questions? Not seeing any, I call the question. All in favor? And that carries. So we're going to move on. This is 6.3.5, Vehicle for Hire Bylaw Amendments. And I do have a motion for this. It's moved by Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Cloutier. It's recommended that committee approve the amendments to the Vehicle for Hire Bylaw 2022-55 attached to Schedule A to report DEV-2023-35, and furthermore, that the amending bylaw be forwarded to the council for approval. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to highlight the report, the Vehicle for Hire bylaw replaced our taxi and limousine bylaw in 2022. One of the definitions in there, section 1.3, the definition of broker suggested under the old bylaw, the taxi and limousine bylaw, that the owner of the vehicle needed to have a broker license. For several years, there's been two companies in town where the broker is also the owner. So the broker owns the vehicles. The broker being the umbrella company, the owners being the vehicles. At one point, one of the companies had a broker and 3 owners, which made sense to the bylaw at the time. As outlined in the report last year, things are changing, times are changing. You know, I don't know how many times I've seen people on their smartphones trying to, get a ride through a rideshare program, and you all know who they are. You know, the Lyft, the Ubers are probably one of the bigger ones around. But this definition, as defined, would restrict the I'll call them rideshare companies, because of the way it's worded. The person driving the vehicle is the owner, but as the definition suggests, they could also meet the requirement of a broker, which is not and was not the intent of changing the bylaw from taxi limousine to vehicle for hire. That's the biggest change. There's a couple other housekeeping items in the rest of the bylaw. And anything else? Nope. And we're here for questions.
Do we have any questions from committee? I just have a question. So we've reviewed the entire bylaw now, and it meets the requirements needed for the new value drive? Okay, perfect.
Yes, Mr. Chair, would satisfy the requirements of the rideshare to not have to pay that additional broker fee, which is $527 per vehicle. So.
Okay. See any questions? Well, call the question. All those in favor? That motion carries. We're still here. So moving on to 6.3.6. Mr. Nagy, here's to the 2022 Annual Building Department Review, and this is just for information, everyone.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As noted, it is the 2022 annual review. Just want to highlight a couple quick things. So total building permits for 2022, 757, slightly under what our more recent average was. However, the construction value was substantially more, which is great. Our gross revenue of 2020 allowed us a positive contribution into our Building Stabilization Reserve Fund of an unaudited amount of $172,000. Highlights over the year that we were able to cover off were a new staffing area that was created for the building office, that they're all able to work together. Also a file room that's being utilized by building and planning down in the first floor level. We've also been able to help with some structural/office alterations on that level as well, including dust prevention and the ability of a door being put in. With respect to affordable housing, we did see one grant under a successful application of $2,500 rebate. However, as highlighted on Monday night, there'll probably be some more grants through a multi-residential property for this year. So we see that program being more taken advantage of this year. So with that, if there are any questions for it, I'd be happy to answer. So.
Thanks for that. Do you have any questions? Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question about the affordable housing program. Why do you think that it's being underutilized by developers?
So through you, Mr. Chair. So we have been directed at the staffing level to review that program, and we are going to be looking to bring something back. The actual impact values at this point are fairly low, and they haven't potentially reflected the increase in either property evaluations or even construction values and things like that. That being said, I see Julia kind of had her hand up, so I don't know if she wanted to add to that particular program or.
Go ahead, Julie.
I just wanted to add to that through the changes through Bill 23, I have to make sure I get that right now, those changes to the Development Charges Act, there was some reference to attainable and affordable housing, but they didn't clarify yet what that meant. So we're waiting for the ministry to come out with a bulletin to explain, to provide us with those parameters. So once we get that, then we can bring something back to update that program, but we are waiting for that piece because that will significantly change how we administer that program.
Thanks for that. Do we have any more questions? Well, Mayor Alcott.
Thank you, Chair Armour. And it's really not a question, it's more of a comment. I'm always blown away when I look at your numbers, Chris, at the year-end review. And really, it's the numbers around a total of 757 building permit applications. And as you drill down on that, 4 apartment buildings consisting of a total of 90 units. So those numbers refer to completed construction or those are permits issued, and construction completion is at a later date.
Yes, so through you, Deputy Mayor Armour, I always summarize the actual applications that we've issued at that point and not finalized. So those particular projects will ideally be finalized into this year and things like that. So, and I appreciate that highlight because a lot of the time when you're thinking about workloads and stuff like that, these larger projects do carry over into multiple years, right? So I know in my previous reports, I have highlighted, obviously, when looking for staff that, yeah, we do have these larger projects that are going on that are going over multiple years. And although we do have a healthy reserve and everything, if something, heaven forbid, did happen, we could pull to make sure that we're covering off that staff time in the future to make sure that those projects are on time from a municipal standpoint. So, okay.
Thank you for that. No, that's great. And so something like the rental building on Highway 60, which is, I think, about 80 units or something like that,
Right.
that would have been recorded 2 years ago in your highlights.
Exactly. Yeah,
Right.
you're absolutely right. Yep.
It still is phenomenal, you know, when you look at 8 commercial industrial buildings, that, to me, I feel like Huntsville sort of stands alone in some respects with all of this activity in all sectors. I'm blown away. Thank you for this.
Thanks for that. Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Armour. Just one more question. Of the 757 permits that have been allocated, how many of those are actually done through the online stream process, like the cloud process that you have?
Through you, Councillor Armour. Actually, so as of 2021, all of our applications are actually done through this system. We do offer, if someone does want to come in with a paper copy, to assist them, and we have a kiosk at the town hall and everything to help them out. I know in some sectors of the industry don't really like to utilize the online process, however, which is no problem, right? But that's why we've set up that kiosks, and our staff are able to just scan it all in and get it going. But I would say on average, at least 95% of the applications are going in and not receiving any paper at the counter. So
Yeah. And just to follow up, Chair Armour, that makes me happy to know that there's not as much paperwork that's going through. And so just to follow up, but that's both just residents, average citizens that are going through that process, as well as developers.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
That is correct. And what it's also allowed us to see is some designers working on behalf of local property owners from outside of our township and stuff like that, right? So, but them still having the ability to look and see what the process is as far as inspections and everything like that. So it has been, well utilized by local and remote property owners. So, yeah.
That's excellent. Not so much a question. You might not even answer this anyhow. I'm just wondering how 2023, with 2 months into it, is looking compared to 2022.
Yeah, so to you, the numbers we're sitting at about just over 100 permits already submitted. In general, permits generally come in May, June, July, and we see that peak. So we're on board with what the numbers are from last year at this point, even though it seems like it's fairly low. We're doing, and as highlighted within the report, our staff are actually focused on older permits and older applications that maybe haven't been completed through the process to do follow-ups at this stage to get that all cleaned up as well, right? So, yeah.
Excellent. Good to hear. That was just for information, everybody. Still up, Chris. We got the 6.3.7 report number DEV 2023-37 2022 annual short-term rental program review, and this is just for information.
So thank you again. So I just wanted to note right off the bat that I know Councillor Morrison has brought up some questions with respect to short-term rental. This report doesn't cover those questions just because of timing and everything, and we will be bringing back a report in the future. However, that being said, the program has become self-sustained as of 2022, which is a good notion. This includes the third-party hosting information that we're currently using, as well as the shared property standards and short-term rental enforcement position. With respect to enrollment, at the end of 2022, we had 201 properties enlisted in the program and 34 applications under review. Moving forward with this particular program, staff will be focused on non-compliant properties through the AMP system, which we've seen success in that. And staff will also be looking into opportunities to better educate the general public, such as lake association meetings and potentially public open houses to address any concerns and things like that. So with that, I'll kind of let the report speak to itself. So,
thanks for that. Do you have any questions on this one? No question. Okay. Thanks very much. Perfect. Hi, Mike. This is report DEV 2023-39, BIA sidewalk patio and rental use policies. And this does come with a motion that it's moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, and seconded by Councillor Clark. It's recommended that the sidewalk patio policy and sidewalk retail use cafe policy as attached to report DEV 2023-39 be approved. And furthermore, that the sidewalk patio / cafe policy resolution 2057-06 be rescinded. And further, that the fees and charges bylaw 2022-148 be amended to reflect the new fee outline in report DEV 2023-39. And the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, through you, Chair Armour. So in 2022, staff presented a sidewalk patio policy amendment to the 2006 policy. Staff were directed to collaborate with the BIA and report back. So that is what we have done. So after collaboration with the Huntsville BIA, attached are the policies that the BIA supports here today. Policy changes include splitting the policy into two so as not to confuse patios with retail and cafe displays, as well as modifying application requirements to remove setbacks for unimpeded sidewalk distance, notification to neighboring businesses, and the BIA also providing a criteria checklist. So just some items to note include that the BIA board would like to modify the specified hours of closure in both policies, which are currently from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. to reflect the associated businesses' hours of operations. Staff did not include this in the policy as it would conflict with the provisions of the noise bylaw and recommend that this not be changed. So that's up for council to discuss. The fee for the cafe and retail policy was removed to help assist business owners with simplifying the application process, and that was after lots of collaboration and discussion. However, the patio fee application is still recommended for some cost recovery of staff time, and the BIA board was satisfied with this amendment, but further requested that a reduced fee of no more than $50 for patio renewals be incorporated. So the rest of the information is outlined in the report, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
That's a very good report, too. Thanks. Do you have any questions? Councillor Stone.
Thank you. As I've mentioned before, I think this is overreaching and unnecessary for the municipality, but given that the BIA has reviewed it and they're happy with it, I'm happy to move on. I do have a comment, and it's not worth an amendment, but the patio and cafes are not allowed shouting, hooting, whistling, which I'm okay with, but the singing. If they're singing down there, I hope somebody's going to call me and I'll come down and sing with them. But it does include singing. I would like to see the recommendation number 3, which accepts this report, but a renewal fee of $50 instead of $150. So I would like to see that change.
Thanks for that. Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Armour. I support what Councillor Stone said about the renewal fee, and so are you proposing a motion to do that? I would second it if you did.
Wonderful. I do.
Councillor Renwick, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Armour. Having been involved with this, with the BIA, just being on the board, it has been a very fulsome discussion and lots of back and forth. And I think the BIA is in support of the two separate policies, which I think is very great that we separated them. But I would have to agree with Councillor Stone on option number 3 as well. That it's that the renewal fee of the initial fee of $250 is fine, but the renewal fee should be $50 rather than $175. $125. Yeah. So I would. Yeah.
Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, Chair Armour. I know you guys did consult with Deb Kerwin, who is the current vice chair for the 2022 policy, on some wording. I'm assuming everything else, now that it is split in two, is covered under AODA?
I believe so. It was, sorry, through you, Chair. I believe so. It was as it was following the original policy, and so the contrasting colors would still be the same.
Do you have any more questions around the table? I just have a comment. I just hope that this year they utilize it and we see a few more patios out on Main Street, because that's why we built it the way it was, or the way it is today, so bring more tourism into town. So I believe we have an amendment. Lauren, you okay with the wording?
Yep. That's correct.
Okay, it's moved by Bob Stone, seconded by Mayor Alcock. It's recommended that the sidewalk patio policy and sidewalk rental use / cafe policy as attached to report DEV 2023-39 be approved with the following amendment. Reduce the renewal fee from $125 to $50. And furthermore, that the sidewalks patio / cafe policy resolution 257-06 be rescinded, and furthermore, that the fees and charges of 2022-148 be amended to reflect the new fee outlined in report DEV 2023-39. Any more questions on this? Have a vote to accept it as amended. And that carries, and then I have a vote to accept the original motion with the amendment. And that carries. Thanks. All right, Lauren, you're still up. We have a report number DEV-2023-40. It's the IDA parking lot offer to lease. And we have a motion for this. It's moved by Councillor Cloutier, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. The town has been approached by the owner of the property located at 5 Caroline Street East regarding entering into an agreement to lease the parking lot to the town of Huntsville for public use. Now, therefore, it is recommended that staff be directed to review the lot and report back to committee on cost of initial repairs, ongoing maintenance, and should committee choose to enter into an agreement. Do we have any questions on this one? Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Councillor Chair, or Councillor Armour, sorry. Through you to Lauren, I think having the extra 14 spaces downtown obviously would be a great thing for the BIA and for the town itself. The concern really that was brought forward, I think, is about the snow removal. But if the snow, well, I don't want to get into operations, but the snow removal could still happen early in the morning if we wanted to use this as a spot for parking. Correct?
Through you, Chair Armour, that would probably be a question I'd have to defer to operations.
And Director of Operations?
Through you, Chair. The issue of snow removal is twofold. One is timing. With additions of, as we're taking on more and more, so we assumed a new road today, as Brandon presented earlier. We've got the trail from Naughty Pine down to Center Street. We've got the sidewalk. With our current machinery and staffing, we're going to run into challenges with snow removal, just in general, as we continue to add more with the existing equipment and staffing. That's part one. So the timing, we can look at what time in the day we would look at doing that. That's fine, all of the rest of that. But the second challenge comes back to minimum maintenance standards. Once the town assumes a parking lot, it falls under that minimum maintenance standards to reduce the liability to the town should something occur on that property, which also means that there is mandatory maintenance requirements at this point that we have to meet certain timelines and deadlines. So that's really where the challenges lie with snow removal.
Follow up?
Thank you. Just a follow up. But we do have the equipment to remove the snow, do we not? That's not a question. You're saying that we're adding in other trails, the other road. We have the equipment to do this. It's really just a timing issue, I think, and maybe staff, bodies. Yeah. But I don't know. I think having additional parking downtown is a bonus. So maybe we need to work around having it happen. So.
Go ahead.
No, through you, Chair, the equipment does exist. That's not the issue. But if that equipment is being used to clear other things, then that extends the time before we can get to it. And if we don't get to it in time, or we get to something else in time under the minimum maintenance standards, that's where the challenges lie. Right?
Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair Armour. I think this is great, and my question is really straightforward. We're asking staff to review the lot and report back to committee on cost of initial repairs, et cetera. So I'm wondering if we have a time estimate on this, because I think it would be really great to proceed as soon as we can with this. So any thoughts on that, Lauren?
Lauren?
Through you, Chair Armour, as it would be dependent mostly on the operations team for review, I would have to again defer to operations to comment on timelines.
Councillor Cluche, go ahead.
Through you, Chair. I've parked in this thing, in the spot a few times. I've utilized it. 14 spots seems a little exaggerated to me. I drive a pickup truck and I don't think you can get 14 in there. And as far as the snow removal, that's basically what we'd have to do in there, because if you start plowing it into a corner, which you usually do in there, you're gonna lose spots very quickly. The snow basically has to be removed from that area, so that's a bigger cost, I'm sure, as Mr. Ukivi could attest to. So I think we should take a very careful look. Yes, the 14 spots would be great for downtown, but I mean, we just gave up 6 up to 14 that I didn't agree on, and just to let it be known. But anyways, with this parking lot, yes, the 14 spots would be nice, but I think there's a lot of work to keep it to 14 spots in the wintertime, which is basically 6 months of our life in this community. So I'm not too crazy about taking this parking lot on.
Madam CEO would like to speak. Oh, okay. Councillor Stone.
Thank you. I love to see more parking available. I understand the struggle with snow plowing. In the evaluation, I think perhaps we could consider it only being used for the summer months. And extra parking in the summer is more than needed.
Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Armour. I would agree with that. If summer months are busier, if it's a space that we can use for parking in the summertime, that's great. I would agree with that.
Madam CEO.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So this is an example of, I would call it sort of creep, service level creep. So we've had a very tough winter. The weather has not been very kind to us. We have had issues with staffing. We have had issues with equipment. We are absolutely meeting our minimum maintenance standards. But to Director Ukivi's point, every time something is added, it really does cause additional pressures. So I think just to be able to pause to look at the surface, which I assume would have to be done once the snow is gone. I'm assuming that we couldn't do that yet. Just to evaluate what that looks like, and then give us an opportunity to reevaluate the maintenance that would be required at that location. To Councillor Stone's point, if there's no winter maintenance, that makes it a lot easier for our team. But we really are at a point where we are stretched very, very thin. So even when it seems like it might be just a small addition, it does keep adding up. So I think if we can have the time to evaluate, look at the surface, come back with a plan to meet the needs. I also think it's important to note that we did have a parking study a few years ago, and it did state that we actually don't have a parking problem in the town of Huntsville. So I recognize that in the summer it's very, very busy. I do recognize it's very busy. But we as staff can definitely work on bringing back something that recognizes our ability to maintain any extra parking areas.
Thanks for that. I remember that parking study too, and but I think it might have been pre to Streetscape maybe, perhaps. But anyhow, so Councillor Fouché, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Maybe in this, for this example, now the owner is looking for a tax break or whatever. If that occurs, if that situation arises, maybe we can work something out with the owner to offer up the parking lot for something else. Like, you know what I mean? Like, make a deal with them in that way that we don't service it, we don't do snowplow, we don't do that, but he offers it as a public space in a break in something else.
Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, Chair Armour. I'm in favor of at least coming back, because the whole point is a report, right? So let's come back with all of our options. Again, I would agree, I think the study was done prior to streetscapes, so I think we do have a parking issue. We just talked about the 6 spaces over there. I think there's a difference in the winter, because we do have, I would probably hazard a guess, a few people from Princess Street who park in that parking lot because you can't park a vehicle on the street during the winter. That frees up the spaces in the summer. And so, again, having the additional parking, if it is just summer, like, let's just look at what our options are. If it is just summer maintenance, let's get a fulsome report on what that would look like, is what I'm suggesting.
Thanks. Any more questions? So I would assume, oh, Councillor Clark, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick comment. Yeah, absolutely agree with Councillor Schumacher's comments. And Councillor Stone's comments, I think, I'd never really thought about just the summer use, but that's a fantastic idea, I think, for that spot. When you drive by that location today, I mean, I think there's maybe, yesterday I drove by, I think there's maybe 3 cars you could get in there in the wintertime. I don't think it makes sense for wintertime use, but summertime, I like that idea a lot. Thank you.
Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you. And looking at the map too, it might even address some of our accessibility issues too, for getting closer to some of those businesses in that area as well.
I don't see any more questions. I think you have direction.
I do.
Very good. So let's call the question. All those in favor? And that carries. Thanks very much. Moving on to 6.3.10, Economic Developers Council of Ontario Bright Ideas Award, recipient Laura McDermott. So, Kirsten, I guess the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's very exciting. Lauren received an award for the Bright Ideas competition. The Economic Developers Council of Ontario hosts an annual competition for economic developers to look at challenges that all of Ontario is facing and come up with ideas as to how they can be addressed. And Lauren and her 2 teammates won an award for, I'm just going to pull up what it's called, a housing readiness assessment that can be used by municipalities. It's a checklist and a framework so municipalities can see what they can do if they're ready for additional housing, affordable housing, and all the rest of it. And it's very exciting that Huntsville won the award with Lauren.
That's fabulous. Do we have, oh. Mayor Alcock.
I just want to say a big fabulous congratulations. When did you receive the award?
It was at the EDCO conference about 2 weeks ago.
Wow, and that was a well-kept secret until, you know. Congratulations, that is fantastic. Now the award was for this checklist. Where do we access the checklist?
So it's actually been provided to the director to begin completing it to see where we stand actually on the housing readiness toolkit. And it will be available on EDCO website with Bright Ideas. And I'd be happy to share it with everyone.
Well, that would be, I would think, given you won an award in this municipality, thank you for sharing it with us. Again, congrats, Lauren. That's really fantastic.
Congratulations. Well, it looks like we've checked all the boxes. We're going to move on to 6.4, and Corporate Services, and Councillor Clark is going to take over as chair. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Armour. So we're going to move on to 6.4.1, and Jessica Boyes is going to give us a report on Corp 2023-9 RC 26-2022 Campbell OSRA closure 271 Echo Bay Road. And I do have a motion here I'll read. So it's moved by Councillor Bob Stone and seconded by Councillor Jason Fitzgerald. So it is recommended that application RC 26-2022 be approved in accordance with the original road and shore road allowance closing policy, development -07, conditional on 1, the applicant pay all survey, legal, and associated expenses. 2, the sale price for the land proposed to be closed be in accordance with the fees and charges bylaw at the time of approval. 3, a survey in duplicate be provided showing the Shore Road allowance flooded, non-flooded areas as specified parts on the plan. 4, a registered transfer deed of land for the Shore Road allowance be filed with the municipality within 1 year from the date of the motion approving the application, or the motion will be considered null and void and a new application will be required. 5, that any utility plant located on the Shore Road allowance proposed to be closed be given an easement. 6, Shore Road allowance is hereby declared as surplus to the town's needs. And oh my goodness, 7 here. The portions of the Shore Road allowance being closed merge in title with the abutting 48099-0077. And thankfully, I'll hand it over to Jessica Boyce.
Thank you, Chair Clark. This report is with respect to a Shore Road allowance closure. The Shore Road allowance contains an existing dock, and the owner is looking to rectify this dock being on a town-owned Shore Road allowance by purchasing it. Staff have no concerns with respect to the application, and no objections have been received. Normally, these types of applications would be a staff approval. However, staff may refer applications where the town is the adjoining landowner to committee for consideration. The applicant's lands are abutting the town-owned park known as Thailand Park at 255 Echo Bay Road, and as such, this application is before committee for approval.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Are there any questions? Councillor Bob Stone.
Thank you. I appreciate that staff don't just go ahead with this, and as it's right next to our town-owned park. We sell our Shore Road allowances when there's no possible use for the public to use it. This is right next to a park and is potentially a larger waterfront piece for our park. I have empathy for the property owner next to it who wants to purchase it, but I'm not necessarily in favor because it is right now a much larger public waterfront, and I am not in favor of closing public waterfronts.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stone. Mayor Alcott.
Thank you, Chair Clark. It's funny, not funny, Councillor Stone raises exactly the point. I was a bit torn on this, and it's for exactly the reason that you raised and why you brought it forward, Jessica, that I'm assuming that the applicant is doing this because they are right beside the Thailand Park and they really want to be sure that they're separating their private property from the park usage. So my question, though, is it would increase the size of the public area, but is that in the intention of the municipality? We're not using that area right now as part of the Thailand Park property. And if we refuse this, then one would suggest that we're refusing it because we intend to expand Thailand Park along the waterfront in front of this property. So I'm not sure, and if we're not intending to do that, then we're just saying no. So I don't know. I understand completely where you're coming from, Councillor Stone. I had a bit of the same reaction. But then if thinking it through, I think then the onus is on the municipality to then put signage there to say the park actually extends across the waterfront. And is that what we're intending to do?
Thank you, Councillor Armour.
Thanks, Chair Clark. I have to agree with Councillor Stone on this. I know that we recently removed a dock from that area. Right. And we had quite a bit of outpouring from the public, and I know there's a gentleman who still lives in that area. I think he's been working with the director, actually, on trying to find a water access for everybody on Echo Bay and Ferry Avenue, et cetera. So I don't know if I'm really ready to just sell this property off.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Armour, and, okay, and any other, Councillor Renwick?
Thank you, Chair Clark. So in the diagram that we see before us, the dock that's there, is that an existing dock, or is what Councillor Armour just said was removed?
Go ahead.
That
Thank
is
you.
an existing dock.
And is it on the Thailand, the municipal land?
So
Oh, the shoreland, so.
it is on the shore road allowance, however, it's within their lot line extension, so it's in front of their private property, not in front of the Thailand Park property. And this shore road allowance doesn't have anything to do with Thailand Park itself. Like, the boundaries will end at the end of their private property, and Thailand Park will remain as it is.
Follow-up, Councillor?
Follow-up, but on this diagram, it looks like the dock is outside of the property we're speaking of.
Go ahead.
Through you, Chair Clark. Yeah, so the diagram is just for reference purposes. The lines are an overlay on an air photo that we use for our TOM mapping. It's not a legal survey, and it's just for reference purposes.
Okay, Councillor Cloutier, and then Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, to clarify, the other, that Councillor Armour was talking about, the other water access is back further, say to the left of your photo, back, we recently just did one for the Leslie property. We had passed some, it's up in that corner where, what street is that? I can't remember, but anyways, the street that comes down here, that's where the public water access is up there. What's that, is it Echo Bay? Yeah, so it's back further. I can't really figure out what number it is, but it's back a bit where the original one is, where the dock was taken out already.
Okay, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair Clark. I think I'm a little perplexed by this one, because in any other instance where an OSRA came to us and people have had the use of that for the ownership of their property, we wouldn't even consider not selling this property to them. We have no, I feel, right to do that to a homeowner who, just because we happen to have a parkland beside them, take away their ability to purchase their shore road allowance. It seems ridiculous to me that we would consider that, actually. I think I would relocate if that happened to me. I would leave the community. Yeah, we have what we have, and we should be happy that we have provided that, and we're looking at more ways to provide them, but not at the expense of people's personal enjoyment and things they've had for years to enjoy. And that's why we have the policy to purchase the short road allowance. So I support the sale of it for sure.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. I would tend to agree with some of those comments. I think the CAO would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Chair Clark. So we are currently committed to have public consultation in that area. As some of you will recall, there was a dock that was removed, and I think it was at the end of Fairy Lake Road. South Fairy Lake Road, thank you. At the end of South Fairy Lake Road, it was removed. We've had consultation with a few of the residents. We have looked at Thailand Park with respect to the installation of a dock as it pertains to replacing one that was removed. It's a little difficult at that location because of the topography of the land. Not saying that it couldn't happen, but it's a bit difficult. But there are discussions ongoing with respect to the replacement of the dock. So I think that's what some of you are recalling, that that's what's happening in that location.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Alcott.
Thank you, Chair Clark, and thank you for those comments, CAO Corey. I guess my question is, if we were to sell this off, and we are looking at what we're doing with Thailand Park and the waterfront element, do we have enough room to put in a new dock or do whatever is required there, or Or do we actually need the space that we're looking at selling?
Okay, thank you. I think Director Ukivi might be able to address that.
Through you, Chair Clark. Don't know the answer to that yet. That's in the assessment phase. When we did look at it, as CAO Corey alluded to, the topography and the terrain there is very difficult, and there is a storm outlet at that point. If we were to look at working some kind of a public dock or access at Thailand Park, it would likely require some engineering work and a serpentine access where we would have to go back and forth, which does require a much wider width of frontage in order to accomplish that, especially for AODA compliance and so forth.
Okay, follow-up from Mayor Alcott.
Thank you, Chair Clark, and thank you for that explanation. So you've just answered the question for me, because I feel I can't make the decision around this today because, given we're in the assessment phase and we may not be able to do anything with the remaining public access. So, and if we need the neighboring piece, then we may need it. So I can't, given we're at that stage in, as you said, Director Ukivi, of assessment, I don't have enough information in front of me to make the decision around this today. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, Chair Clark. Yeah, I'm assuming they're coming forward because they know that we're looking at doing some work in around there, and they want to make sure that their piece of heaven that they've been using is viable. I'm not opposed to them using it, but yes, at this point, I would say, can we hold off? And then once our assessment of the area is done, then we can re-look at this option at that time.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So if we're not proceeding with this sale, and we're aware of this dock in this location, we would require the owners to enter into a license of occupation.
Okay. Question? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm new. What's a license of occupation other than owning it?
So I'll let you answer that, Jessica, if you like.
Through you, Chair Clark. So a license of occupation is a license to use the lands there for their private dock. It's an agreement that we enter into with the town and the property owner, usually for a period of 10 years.
Okay.
But we have the ability to get in and out of that at any point, correct? Yeah, so, and I'm happy that you get to put the new card down this term, and it's not me.
All right, any other questions? Okay, Councillor Armour.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair Clark. I think this is maybe this is a good alternative right now to do the license of occupation, so they can still use the dock, enjoy and I guess my question is, do we have to sign a 10-year, or can we just sign a short one for the summer? And then once we do our evaluation, and if it's not feasible for us to that, then we can revisit the issue then, so it doesn't affect them for this coming summer anyhow.
Jessica?
So council can make a recommendation of any period of time that they wish, just the existing policy is 10 years.
And Mayor Alcott?
Thank you, Chair Clark. I just want to put a motion on the floor that we recommend postponing this motion rather than calling the question on what's before us.
Okay, we could have the clerks look at that. And Councillor Armour?
And I'd like to second that motion, but I wonder if we could add to that we just forego the license of occupation for the 2023 season, because obviously they haven't had one for many years. And that once we finish our evaluation, and then we revisit the whole situation. So we're not costing them any money, they still get to use it, and we get to go through our steps.
Okay, Councillor Fitzgerald.
I've softened a little bit, and I agree that if we need a portion of that, I don't believe in taking their whole shore road allowance away from them. If we don't enter into agreement, though, we've just accepted all the liability for their dock. So we need something. We can't just leave it willy-nilly. And now that we know about it, we have to fix it.
Okay, so, yes, Tanya.
Thank you, Chair Clark. So and Jessica can correct me if I'm wrong, but the policy itself, just why we're here, one of the reasons why we're here is the policy itself says we sell first. And then if we can't sell, then we do a license of occupation. So that just add a little more to your information there. But if we are, I think with an application, you want a decision on it. And if you're not going to make the decision for a long time, because that would defeat the purpose. So I think perhaps, I defer to Jessica, but I wonder if council is not interested at this time, that the motion is defeated, and then we enter into a license of occupation and motion for license of occupation instead. And then should Tyland Park matter come back at a later time, council could always reconsider the matter at a later time. I don't know if that would work, Jessica, and the deputy clerk.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Okay, so, yeah, my comments on that are if it's postponed, I would like to know what we're postponing for and for the time period, some direction on that.
I think Councillor Fitzgerald had a quick question here.
Thank you, Chair Clark. And if we defeat it, isn't there a timeline where it cannot come back to us if we?
Clerk. I think Chris would like to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chair Clark. In regards to process procedurally, so I'm not aware of anything in our policies for this application. So in regards to procedure, no, it could be reconsidered. So you'd actually be amending something previously adopted and at a later date, and council can do that. It would just require a 2/3 vote. So that can be done at a later date. Procedurally, that can happen.
Okay, and Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair Clark. I just want to concur with our clerk then, and I think that's great. So we should, if we're, I guess the question would be, so if we're voting on the motion that is on the table, do we need another motion then to give Jessica direction with respect to the license of occupation? Yes. Okay, I'm seeing a yes. And then I'm watching eye contact between these two, so I can't tell what's going on.
Okay. I'll let Tanya go, and then I think Councillor Armour has a question.
It's funny, Crystal and I usually telepathically communicate with each other, but I defer just back to Jessica for one moment. Actually, first of all, the question on top of the deputy clerk, the procedural bylaw states that you can reconsider a matter once in the term of council. Maybe that's what you're thinking, Councillor Fitzgerald. The other thing is, if you were a new term of council, there's no, then you're starting over and can do it anyway. So I don't know if that's what you were thinking, but just to add on top. To defer to Jessica, just because it's an application, I'm just wondering, they're waiting for an answer, therefore to defeat the motion. My only question about this to Jessica is, if council decides Tyland Park is moot for that shore road, I wonder if they would have to pay all over again because the decision was made on the motion. That's my only question there in defeating. So if Jessica believes that we should be postponing, so I'm just thinking if we create the motion that says we postpone the matter until the Tyland Park has been determined, and therefore committee will reconsider, or
So we're
review
back
it
to
at
the
that time.
postponing until.
Yeah.
That, and that seems, and
Yeah.
that's what, in fact, I think Crystal
Yeah.
had.
I'm just worried about the
Fee and all of that,
fee
then
and
we're
have to pay
we're
again.
actually having to, we could waive it, and we could put in the motion that we waive it, but, or we could just do the postpone until such time,
Yeah.
right? And, so, my apologies,
okay.
Chair Clark, I'm completely out of line here.
I think
Sorry.
the CEO wanted to say something as well, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So actually what Director Kalea had said was what I was thinking. We postpone it in discussions with Director Ukivi. We did try to have public consultation, but it was a little bit rushed. There was concern about lack of notice. So I know that Director Ukivi is going to be working with Lauren, who's not in the room, to make arrangements for that to reignite. And I do believe that that's anticipated to take place in April. So it will happen fairly soon, the consultation. So I think you'll have a report back from Director Ukivi fairly timely after those consultations occur. So to postpone it until after the decision's made, I think is a great suggestion.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. I was going to ask that very question.
Okay, all right, and Councillor Fitzgerald had a question.
Thank you, Chair Clark. Yeah, I'm sure the applicant is probably anticipating and watching this or waiting anxiously to hear the results of the application. So I think that, you know, asking them for a survey when we've just had this discussion and that kind of thing is not a fair or reasonable thing to do. So I agree for postponing, but I really feel that we should consider public needs and trying to and work out some arrangement where they don't lose outright the use of their waterfront. That just seems unreasonable to me.
Okay, Crystal?
If I could just ask some clarification to Ms. Boyce. If committee is looking to postpone the matter, is there any direction required in regards to a license of occupation, or can they just move forward with that process?
Jessica?
So the consultations are going to be taking place in April. I mean, I'm just thinking in terms of the dock, the use of the dock, it's not going to be taking place in April. So I think I'm good on that respect.
Okay. So we're just, I think we're waiting, right, for a motion, right? Amendment, I guess. A postponement. Do you need a minute, Crystal, or you got it on the screen? Okay, I think I can see it there. Okay, so it's moved by Mayor Alcock and seconded by Dion Schumacher. So it's recommended that Report Corp 2023-09, RC 26-2022 Campbell OSRA closure 271 Echo Bay Road be postponed until such time as an assessment of the area has been done in regards to Tyland Park at 255 Echo Bay Road. Are there questions? I don't see any, so I guess I'll ask the question then. All in favor of that? And that passes, okay. All right, so I think we're on to the next item, and hopefully the next one's a little easier than that one. So we're on to 6.4.2. It's Jessica again, and she's looking at, going to bring us report number Corp 2023-11 King Street Pedestrian Pathway. And I do have a motion here to read, so I'll read that. So this one's moved by Councillor Cloutier and seconded by Councillor Schumacher. So whereas the Main Streetscape project, King Street, was converted to a pedestrian pathway with interlocking brick, and whereas, as per Section 35 of the Municipal Act 2001, the town is obligated to change the status of the highway, be updated to match the conversion. Now therefore, it is recommended that the draft bylaw as attached to Report Corp. 2023-11 be approved and forwarded to council in order to restrict King Street between Main Street and Dara Howell Way to pedestrian access. Okay, and I'll let you talk to that report. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair Clark. This report is with respect to the formerly traveled road King Street from Main Street to Dara Howell Way. During Streetscape, this project or this area was physically converted to a pedestrian pathway with interlocking brick. Staff are looking to update the legal status of the pedestrian pathway by passing a bylaw under Section 35 of the Municipal Act. There are various maintenance standards to roads depending on their classification and legal status, and passing this bylaw is a key piece in the legal status of the road. The result of passing this bylaw is that the road remains under the jurisdiction of the town, but closed to vehicles. Restricting the use in this way as opposed to closing it permanently keeps the existing utility rights, as we are aware that water and sewer infrastructure is located there. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions with that report? I don't see any. Okay, so I will call the question then for that, and all in favor? And that passes. Okay, that was much easier. So now we're moving on to 6.4.3, and that is Lisa Smith, and she's bringing report number HR 2023-3, Public Sector Salary Disclosure. And I'll let you start. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair Clark. So the report before you is actually our yearly reporting obligations under the Public Sector Salary Disclosure Act, and it is for information only.
Okay, any questions on that? I don't see any. Okay, thank you. All right, so moving on then to, again, for information only, this is 6.4.4, and this is CAO Denise Corey, to do with the report number CAO 2023-2, Lakeland Holding Limited, 2022 fourth quarter shareholder update.
Thank you, Chair Clark. So this is just a standard reporting that Lakeland does. You'll see 4 quarterly reports per year come from them, as well as a stakeholder meeting, which the mayor and I will attend, I believe is in June. So just information keeping us up to date. And we also have Lakeland scheduled, I think, to come to committee sometime in the next couple months, just to provide a greater overview on Lakeland and our investments and what they're up to. So just a report for information.
Okay, are there any questions on that? Okay, I don't see any, and so thankfully, I think my time on the hot seat is done, and I can pass it over to Mayor Alcock.
I have to say, before I read the next motion, I just want to say thank you to all of the chairs today, especially our last one, because given it's your first time, you had a rather difficult motion to deal with. So bravo to everybody. It was actually kind of a lot of fun. So there we go. Anyway, we're moving along to new business, and I do have a motion that has been moved by Councillor Cloutier, seconded by Councillor Renwick, whereas there has been interest expressed for the year-round use of ice at the Canada Summit Centre. Now, therefore, it is recommended that staff be directed to investigate the impacts on budget, staffing, programming, user groups, and event rentals if the ice in the Canada Summit Centre were to remain all year long. Report back to General Committee prior to the 2024 budget submission process. I would ask Councillor Cloutier if you'd like to speak to this.
Through you, Your Honor. I've been, because I've been involved in junior hockey, I had 4 teams from the Northern Ontario Junior A Hockey League, which is Sudbury, North Bay, right up to Cochrane, all over. They always come down into Barrie and hold summer training camps, tryout camps. So they usually rent between 30 to 40 hours of ice for each one of these camps. You know, there's hotel rooms, everything, players, their staff, everybody has to come to the area. So I was approached by 4 of them, actually through Ted McGee, who is vice chair up in the league. So there was 2 that definitely said they would have came this year if we would have had it. Now it's something that can grow. We have a lot of our residents go to Burkes Falls every summer and rent ice for weekly skates. Also, we have the junior team in town here is looking at running hockey schools for the summertime for our local hockey players. And there is one hockey school that I know would move here, and it goes to Burkes Falls right now. So will it have the same capacities in the wintertime? No, but there's still going to be the use, and I think it's something if it's there, people know it's there. We have the nicest facility, basically, for a community our size in Ontario, and the Dawn is not being, it's being used, yes, for other purposes, but as an arena, I think we could put it out. There's summer tournaments that go on, puck and ball tournaments, everything that, again, would bring people to our community. In the summertime, seniors could use the walking track because it's basically air conditioned. We can use it as a cooling center in the summertime too, in a large area like that. So I think there's a lot of different things. I know seniors would sooner, they used to walk in the mall in the air conditioning. Well, if we have that, they continue to use it on the year round. So it's just something I brought up that I'd like to see it explore. And like I said, if it's basically like the Field of Dreams, you build it, they will come. And I think as of next year, it might not be full, but I think, as it goes and we save the cost of putting the ice in and out and stuff like that, and we have the maintenance guys there, and yes, they do other jobs in the summer, but however, a director can work on things. I think so. Go ahead, Dean.
Go ahead, Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Alcock. I'm not opposed to bringing back a report. I think it's great. I mean, as I said last time, I think when Bob asked about use, we are reflective of our community, and I think it's a good thing. I mean, I know when Tim Withy was on our council, he had brought this suggestion forward too, and I think the last report was from 2015, so even before my time, that they had tried to go out and get user groups, and selling of the ice was not a viable thing at that time. That has changed. I'm just concerned, which I think will come back in the report, things like lacrosse. If they're moved out of there, there's a number of, members of this community that are a huge lacrosse community that use that facility in the summer. Where are they going? That kind of thing, right? And if we're moving them out of the Dawn because we're using we're moving them out of the Jack because we're using the Dawn, and we're moving the stuff that we use on the Dawn onto the Jack. Like, that's the thing. We're gonna be moving a bunch of people around. I'm happy to see the report, and I'm sure that Director Babineau will bring us all of those options. But yeah, that is, I guess, my concern is who are we usurping in order to do this? Because we have our Children's Day programs that use that as well, right? So we have to take them into consideration.
Thank you for those comments. And I think I'm going to Deputy Mayor Armour, and back to you then, Councillor Cluche.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think this is a great opportunity, and I'm glad to see it come forward, actually, to finally get a report on this, because it sits with the lights off probably most of the time in the summertime, I would imagine. No? Okay, but then, I know they only use it for lacrosse for the little kids because the clock's down too low or something like that. But anyhow, I think it's a good report. I think we should see it, and the opportunity could be there because we might have an opportunity to turn some really good revenue over this. Because it is a fabulous facility that should be open, I think, 12 months of the year.
I'm looking forward to the report, and I'm assuming that, and I know you've already had discussions with our director and this was the recommendation to have. Right, thank you. So Councillor Cloutier, would you like to add to that, or?
Through you. No, I just, like with the lacrosse, I was gonna point out to Dan, the older kids don't use it, or the adults for lacrosse, just the younger ones. So, I mean, there's training, there's definitely gonna be people pushed out, you know, but I mean, do we have other amenities in the community to help them out, put them in different spaces, stuff like that, but I'm sure the report will come back with whatever, we can look at it then.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you for bringing that forward, Councillor Cloutier. And I believe did Tanya put this? She did. We've got item number 8, general information. Farewell to Crystal. So, Brenda's been waiting in the wings. Yes, indeed. And you don't think. Thank you. We do have this card that hasn't been signed by everybody yet.
I'll take it around after.
But after, I think that could be one of your last jobs. And we will all sign it. That goes over there to be signed. And this is for you. I want to stand, actually. I think this is better that I stand. This is for you. And I'm a little speechless because you have been such a delight and such a joy around our table. I remember when I first met you and you were clerking in planning, and the day that you said, "I'm moving on. I'm going to another committee," and I almost refused. I said, "That can't happen. What do you mean they're just moving you somewhere else? This is your job." And then, of course, you went on to do more important things at that time, and you're fantastic at whatever you do. You are going to be really missed around our table. But having said that, you're not going very far. You're going to a really incredible job. Muskoka Lakes, they're incredibly lucky. I've already talked to the mayor, and at first, told him that once again, Muskoka Lakes is stealing our best, and but how lucky they are. And you're going to do an awesome job. We're going to miss you. There you go. I don't know if anyone else would like to say anything. I think that our CAO would.
Just very, very quickly. So it has truly been an honor and a privilege to watch Crystal grow through her career. Sorry, I didn't think this was going to happen. Crystal came from over at the Community Services, and she just excelled so quickly. And she has brought so much to this municipality, and she has taught us so much. And it is such a pleasure to know that we helped you get to where you're going. And that goes to lots of great leadership through Tanya and senior leaders and a lot of the managers in this organization who I know have all contributed to the absolutely amazing person that you are. And I am still not talking to the CAO in Muskoka Lakes, but I'll get over that at some point in time. But the great thing is that, as the mayor alluded to, you're still in Muskoka. And as all of the area CAOs say that when we can keep our team within the region, that's a great thing. So you're not very far away. And as the mayor indicated, we will miss you very, very much. And we wish you all the best and thank you for all of your service. And all the best.
You don't have to say anything. You don't have to. No, you-
I'm not going to be able to say much, as you can see. I just want to say how truly grateful I am. I could go around the room and thank everyone, but especially the clerk's team and Tanya and Denise and everyone for getting me where I am. And I'm just so proud and grateful and thankful, and I'll miss my Huntsville family. So thank you.
Mayor, can I just say, Mayor Alcock, Mayor,
Helena, my apologies.
no,
I've
that's
lost
okay.
control- I've lost control. I forgot that this
Thank
is a
you.
council meeting in session.
I think
Sorry.
on behalf of the new councillors, the welcome that we got at the very beginning from Crystal and from the clerk's team, but on a personal note, I'm going to miss Crystal a lot, but the fact that she taught my girls swimming lessons when they were just little, and that's when I first met Crystal, and so her career really has gone, giving to this community and continuing to give this community, and I know she is going to be greatly, greatly missed. So thank you for all the work that you've done.
She will be back one day.
Yeah, she will be back.
She will be back. She will be back. That is for sure. All right, I guess I'm supposed to move right along now. All right, that was our general information item. Crystal, I'm going to keep that one. General information, Crystal. I love it. Okay, so we are now moving right along to adjournment. Holy cow. I have a motion moved by Councillor Cloutier, seconded by Deputy Mayor Armour. It is recommended that we do now adjourn at 12:04 p.m. All those in favor?